and welcome to episode 237 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, creator of Indigo Park, and joining me this week are the creator of Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And writer, artist, and a man whose PowerPoint presentations put Industrial Light and Magic to shame, it's Tony Esmond.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes. And before we even get started, because we've got a fun show this week, might as well introduce our guest straight away. This week we're joined by a returning guest, someone who was in a lot of people's best lists for 2019, but more importantly, he's number one in our hearts. It's the creator of Gateway City, Russell Mark Olson. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, all right.
How you guys?
Good evening. Great.
Good.
And that was Russell. See you next week, folks. It's been,
all right, out of here, guys.
It's been a crazy couple of months for you, though, hasn't it? Really, like the end of the year. Like, I kept seeing your name pop up all over the place, apart from Crime Watch, of course. But
yeah, no, it was really crazy. Particularly since I felt like I was mostly in the studio for most of like last year. I hadn't really put out a whole lot, so to kind of to sort of to know that people were still thinking of me was really sweet.
Well, I didn't get it when you first did it, Mark. The Black Iris, and I got that like near the end of the year after reading tons of reviews for it, and it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you, man.
Stuff. Yeah. A nice little edge to it. That's what I liked about it. A nice little sort of themed edge. Yeah, good.
What do you mean? Okay. What do you mean by edge? I'm just kidding.
Well, it's not your normal book, is it? It's,
right. I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's got like it's got that sort of noir thing going on. It's not. It was just unusual, I suppose, is what I mean by it. There was nothing rude or super violent in it.
No.
It just had a sort of. I don't suppose you can say a cool edge to it, but it had a sort of coolness to it. I really liked, dude. Yeah.
So
it was like it reminded me of black and white lobby photos. You know, you know what I mean by lobby
yeah,
photos?
no, that's. I used to work at an archive. And we had just boxes and boxes of stuff, and one of the boxes was full of adaptations of Sherlock Holmes novels.
Right.
Yeah. And like, so a lot of these like went back to, well, I mean, the first one thing was like 1914. But this is like quite a standard thing back up until the 60s, I think. Yeah, like lobby cards, or like booklets with them. Yeah. So that. I mean, it was an Inktober thing, but the idea of putting it together as a book more or less was that. It's like, oh, those little books are really cool, and it'd be nice to do something with it. So it's a format I'd like to do some more with, but man, it takes time.
I've bought some of them. I'm not a collector of them, but I buy the odd one here and there. And I remember them being, you would presume so much from that single image about the story, you know? Yeah. That was a good thing about them. It really gave it a nice sort of vibe, I think. Yeah. When you walked in. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go.
So,
good shout.
With that in mind, and I know the noir thing may tie in to something that we're going to talk about a bit later, but we'll get on to the fun topic of this week's show in a second. Because before that, we've got something also very important to talk about.
Are we?
Yes, our sponsor, Tony. Comic House. They are the indie comic marketplace with a difference. They sponsor the show. They're fantastic. And they're going to take over the world in 2020. Yes, if you go to the website, there's a huge selection of titles on the database. Creators can upload their comic there. It's another way to, if you self-publish, it's another way to get your book out there. You can list it for free, start selling straight away. But they've also got an app which features very heavily in our reading weekly. Yep. But it should do with you as well. Loads of great digital comics on there. It's like a basic Netflix for comics. What have they got on there at the moment, guys?
This week's offerings, we've got Grey issue 1 by Daniel Faulkner, Mahoney's issue 2, which is fantastic. I've been privy to a little bit of the artwork for issue 3. That looks great. Hawk Chronicles Volume 1, which is an absolute belter, and Bell Time by David Robertson. These are all brand new titles on there. Yeah,
and there's a huge range of titles, isn't there? There's loads of different stuff.
There's thousands. I went on there today, and there's like 1,500 plus, and I was like, bloody hell!
Now? That's good.
There's
stuff.
a lot.
Yeah.
So
and the database is only growing. If you're a creator, do get your comics on there, you can sign up. Create a profile so people know where to find your work and find your social media links. They're very much about that. So if you do have your books on there, make sure to also set up your profile, because if people like reading your book, then just a couple of clicks or looking at your website or things like that. So it's all very important, and it's great for creators.
You can sell your books through Comic House.
Yeah.
So you have that kind of tie-in of having it on the app, and people reading it being able to purchase it straight from you.
Yeah, and nice. I know we're a UK show, but Comic House caters to people from all over the world, and there's books from all over appearing on there, which is great to see. Actually, I love the fact that worldwide sort of creators are getting their stuff on there as well. So to find out more about the service, the app, and everything, there's also a 14-day free trial for Comic House. So give it a go. Free trials are the thing, aren't they? Really.
He's fixed a couple of bugs, isn't he, as well? So there's you can look at much longer lists of comics these days.
Yeah.
It used to limit you to a number, but you can look at top comics and it just keeps scrolling. Yeah.
Nice.
Then you can actually rotate the pad you're reading on as well.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Rotating.
Yeah.
So if you're on an Android, I think there's a link. You have to re-download the app.
Yeah.
And I think Apple might update automatically. You might have to check that.
Yeah, mine updated automatically. I didn't have to change it.
There we go.
And this is an indie company doing it the indie way, so throw them your support, because a lot of these bigger apps and bigger companies and stuff, they got God knows how many millions behind them, whereas this is a comic company that's just like the rest of us making comics. So they're doing what they can, so throw them your support. Check out comichouse.com and find
currently out. There's a few good books on the banner there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Gateway City. I'm looking at the cover of Gateway City on the top banner at the moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Well, speaking
from looking at covers.
From looking at covers, indeed. Yes. This week we're going back to the topic of cover artwork in comics. Something we've covered once or twice, I think, before on the show, haven't we? Like
we can't avoid these puns, can we?
No.
Just turn into it.
Yeah. Okay.
You can never avoid a pun on this show. We love them. But there's a lot to cover in this episode. So,
I'm so easily amused.
I know. It's terrible. No, but we thought we'd do something a little bit different. I don't think we've done this before, have we? With comic covers, have we?
Well, we've chosen. No, we've talked about them.
Yeah.
And there's selling points to them, haven't we?
Certainly, I think the discussion is, when we talk about certain covers, we'll discuss what helps sell a cover, the things to bear in mind. But what we decided to do this week is, and Russell's got he's wonderful art chops, so he's fully qualified to join us. Well, actually, he's more than qualified than any of us. But
much more than me.
But we've all picked 3 comic book covers. Be they classic, be they recent, be they indie, be they whatever. We just thought we'd pick out covers that I think
the only condition being that one had to be from last week. That's right.
Yeah. There was a new comic book day cover. For those who don't know, on sort of our individual social medias, and we should probably retweet them on the Awesome Pod social media as well, aren't we? The 3 hosts on this show, every Wednesday we do a sort of a digital browse, and we pick out 4 covers that we like from that week. We don't necessarily buy the books, sometimes it's just looking at beautiful artwork, so it's just highlighting great comic book covers, and that's been great fun to do, and hopefully a lot of you people out there like checking out the stuff that we put out there, and it's great to see what covers other people like, and seeing what artwork. Or I know sometimes I've put out a list and then I've looked at Tony's or Dan's and gone, I've picked that one as to It's interesting to see what.
Yeah, I do it blind. I don't look at your 2. I don't pay attention to which one's chosen before I do it. Yeah, then I go and look back.
Find odd, and some weeks I struggle to find 4 that I think I really like these, and then other weeks it's there's an absolute abundance and it's bloody tricky. I usually download them, all the ones I like, and then go over it and think, I'll pick those 4.
I go through, pick the ones I like, and then I go back, because obviously I have to trim them to put them on the thing, and I go back and think, I'll pick those 4. But it'll change day to day for me.
That's exactly what I do as well, and there is very much sometimes. There is a toss-up between 2 potential covers. So, your 4th pick, and you're thinking, am I going to regret it if I pick this one over the other? I know it's just a bit of artwork, but it becomes a little thing in your brain, isn't it? I mean, I would love to see more of our followers joining us on the weekly Wednesday sort of digital cover browse, because it's very interesting to see what covers appeal to different people, because I know I like a certain design aspect. Some people may just like, just a fight on their cover or something like that. But yes,
I was going to say it's great for the invite actually, because I love that you guys do that. It's one of my sort of highlights for Wednesdays to see it.
Oh,
and I often think like, I should do something like that. I think, well,
definitely.
That's just piggybacking. But
no.
But it really is. I mean, one, like sometimes I can't get to the comic book shop every Wednesday.
Yeah.
So just to kind of get that little bit of that sort of like taste of it is fantastic.
Yeah.
It really is.
And like sometimes I know and I really shouldn't do this really, but sometimes I think it helps if I know the creators. If it's got a good cover, especially with the digital, that's the danger of digital as well. If I like the cover and I know the creators, click, bought it before I've even looked at.
Yeah, I did it with one of yours. One of the ones you chose, that ROM one. I went and bought that because I like the cover. But to be fair, I did like it. It was a good book. But
there's some that I've seen the little thumbnail for. Thought that looks good, then clicked on it and I thought, actually, I'm not really sure if I like the look of that.
Yeah.
And like I said, they have to work as thumbnails as well as being.
Yeah, they do nowadays, don't they? Yeah.
I mean, that happens a lot, because a lot of the time I'm browsing through and this is what we do on Comixology. You have like the new releases every Wednesday. So, and it's basically, if you do it on your phone, it's just a long list, isn't it, of just comic book covers. And I'm just scrolling down, and basically it's a test of what is going to jump out to me from that little thumbnail. And certainly when, as Dan says, when I could like a thumbnail, go, I want to see that cover a bit bigger, full screen. But when you see it full screen, it loses something. It's quite interesting.
It's a bit like the picture on people's Twitter avatar. For years, I look at something and it just presume it's something else, and then you click on it.
Yes.
And so that's happened to me loads of times. Yeah.
It's interesting. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Go on, go for it, Russell.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I'm working on a cover for a pitch document at the moment, and that's what I've been doing all day, and. I kept getting fixated with a thumbnail that I'd drawn all morning long. I was like, no, I'm going to draw some more. And in the end, I went up picking that thumbnail as the one to then to try out on a full-size board. And by the time I'd inked it, I was like, this doesn't work. It's just it works much better as a thumbnail, but not as the full-sized image. It's just strange how they work like that sometimes.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more higher kind of move into kind of like graphic design and kind of more contrasty and sharper images and cleaner stuff. That's not across the board, but I see a lot more of it than perhaps back in the day when you'd have half a dozen people fighting on the cover. We can get into that as we start our discussion.
I know me and Russell are going to have a little chat about the difference between Marvel and DC, I suspect. Just about one of mine that we had a chat about briefly online, didn't we, Russell? About which I find really interesting from back in the day. I listened to that Slugfest and read that Slugfest book recently, and they talk a bit about it. About covers.
Well, tell you what, should we do our two industry ones and then leave the...
we'll do... Should we do the indie? We'll do the new comic book day one first, shall we? What we'll sort of do with this document, and we'll put it. We'll probably put it as a link on our social media. It'll be on the Podbean, the actual page for this episode and stuff. We're going to put all the covers we're about to talk about in this, so you people out there have got a visual reference to know what we're talking about. Because otherwise we'll just be talking about stuff that people won't.
I love the fact there's so many comic podcasts and they're all about their audio mediums, about visual mediums, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, for instance, one of the ones I'm going to talk about in a minute is very much about typography and things like that. And I'm going to talk about that. And if there's no visual reference, it's going to be just me waffling for 5 minutes. So so we'll have this. So we'll look for that link with this page or in the Twitter stream and all of that. So. And it'd be interesting to see where this discussion goes from here as well.
Yeah.
So who wants to lead off?
Should we let RMO go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're doing the new one from
the new comic book
from last week. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I picked. I haven't read this comic. I think it's on its third issue, but it's Lucy Clare Redemption by John Upchurch, and the cover for me, out of sort of all the ones that I saw from release from last week, the reason why I think it works so well is it ticks all the boxes. One, it's a really good cover. Okay, I should explain what it is first. So it's well, you'll see it in the link below, hopefully. But anyway, it's a image of probably like a junkyard. There's all these cars in the background stacked up, and then in the midground there's a group of figures, and then in the foreground there's a young girl staring up at this giant wolf head, or maybe werewolf head. But anyway, it's a sort of, she's looking right into his mouth. But it's such a striking image. I mean, one, the composition, that's the sort of the layout of the cars stacked up, leave a nice open space for the wolf head to kind of slot in. So there's like an echo of the head. It gives that head so much more presence.
That's weird. I mean, we've looked at each other's covers, and I didn't stare at it, super stared at it, but when I scanned past that one that you chose, Russell, I thought they were like the sort of Chinese, Japanese traditional buildings. Do you know what I mean? With the slatted roofs.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it now, suddenly, oh, it is cars. Fucking hell, what am I thinking about? You know what I mean? Yeah. But it gives that building that tower block effect as well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This was on my shortlist as well. This was almost made it.
Nice, yeah, it's a good one.
Okay.
But it's just everything. It's the colors work really well. I mean, they in order to make sure that the front two characters is so well defined, the colors of the back are just pushed down to a pretty even saturation tone, with a few exceptions on like some of the characters. But it's really powerful, and you get, because you're allowed to just focus in on the two sort of main characters on the page, on the image, you really get that sense of posture, and the kind of the tension between the two figures. It's just a really, really striking image.
Yeah, the young girl in the foreground's got a sort of fuck you stance.
Real attitude.
But the older man behind her has got a sort of worried look almost to me.
Yeah.
What do you think about the eyeball position, Russell? I'm not 100% sure, because it comes between the P and the T in Redemption.
Yeah,
it's slightly out of place for me.
That is probably the weakest point of it, to be honest.
Yeah, the sort of logo placement is almost disagreeing with the composition of the cover, isn't it? Really,
I would suspect that probably that I'm guessing this is a piece of digital work because it looks heavily digital.
Yeah,
I would guess that eye, probably before he put the logo on, was actually between the T and the I.
Okay.
And
it could well be.
And it just didn't work at all, so he moved it over just to get it in between, and that was the best, without changing the entire composition. I mean, it could have been cropped in order to get it to there, because it could have been quite a bit higher.
Yeah, it's weird. It sort of shines out from there. I was almost visually thinking the eyeball was slightly below that, until I realised that yellow was the yellowy gold is the eyeball. It's a strange one. The only way I could think you could get around of it is by running the title sort of vertically down one side. That's the only way.
I don't necessarily think you necessarily need a glowing eye. I think
No.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Just have it in shadow or something.
And to be perfectly honest, the teeth, they're all you need. You don't need. I mean, the mouth is threatening enough. You don't need to have an eye there.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right, man. Yeah.
But I think it points out that something that I don't know if you guys have felt this, but no matter how many comic covers you draw, you never leave as much space as you should for the title. Never, ever. Yeah. And there's always that point when you finally put it on, where you're like, oh, I need to change this.
Yeah.
And you do everything you can not to, and then eventually it's all right.
You really have to design your image with that in mind.
Yeah.
Like I've briefed people to do covers for Vanguard, and I have the title running down the right-hand side. So obviously that offers a challenge to someone creating an image, because you got to leave that kind of dead space there to incorporate that.
Yeah.
It's definitely a challenge. One of the things I like about this is the wolf seems enormous, because you've got the stack of cars up on the left, which is like monstrously tall, and then the wolf is taller than that. so it kind of like defines the sizes and threats of things.
Yeah.
Even
though it's all a perspective, isn't it? It's all a perspective trick being played. Yeah.
It's really well done. Yeah,
I think the character design is very strong on this. You know, if you just glance at it, it just looks like a group. But when you look at it, they're all individuals that are on this cover. And it's a strong... I think it's a great cover. I love it. My question is this an issue 1? And if so, is it a strong issue 1 cover?
I don't think the banner stands out enough.
No.
Lucy Claire, I didn't even notice that till I expanded it on my screen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're getting a crop of this cover, because that's a real tight crop to the top where it says Lucy Claire.
Yeah, it's really tight. I can't imagine.
Maybe there's more.
Yeah. It's I think it's issue 2 or issue 3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So surely someone said bananas.
I think it's issue 2, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that brings up the important sort of, a cover can be amazing, but you have to think about what your issue 1 is, because I think an issue 1 cover is a completely different kettle of fish to everything else you do, I think. Because there are some times that I've seen an issue 1 cover and it feels like it should be issue 4 or issue 5. That sounds crazy, but sometimes, if it's just a generic fight shot between two characters, I feel like this comic is halfway through something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to make people fall in love with the character on the cover, so you buy it.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's got flavour of the series and flavour of the whole story. This is what I'm going to get from getting this.
But the ultimate reason for a cover is, if that cover was on a shelf, would it make you pick it up? That's the ultimate reason, isn't it? And I think that probably would. I think with me, the art style isn't one that I'm totally in love with, although it is good. No. It's not the sort of thing I would automatically go for, but it's got enough drama. There's a story in that cover as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
all over
I love
the place
storytelling covers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
you look at why are there cars? Why is that her dad? Is that not her dad? Who's the kid? Is that an ice hockey stick he's got? Or what is he carrying? Who's the little girl with the pink hat on? What's that all about? There's so much going on there, isn't there?
And I know this book is about werewolves, so I'm probably going to get it at some point.
You like a werewolf?
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a strong start to get us kicked off.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
Shall I go next with mine?
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh,
okay, so
it's a beauty.
we chatted a bit about this online already, so I know Colin Noble will be very excited when I tell him I've chosen this one, but mine's a Commando cover. I'm not a big collector of Commando, probably more Star Blazer. I'll read the odd one here and there if there's nothing about, sat in a barber shop or something, it's that sort of thing. This is, I think, Colin will probably tell you because he's the maestro of this stuff, but this is I think a reprint of a previous. So these are reprints of Commando covers, I understand it. Commando stories. So these are, I think, the gold collection, because the guy who created it is a guy called Ken Barr. So the story is this two Nazi-esque officers standing there pointing bayoneted guns at a very famous actor whose name I've forgotten. He's clearly drawn as him, who's sort of wartime black and white actor, who's being executed. He's apparently got his hands tied behind his back, and he's got the blindfold pulled down on his neck, where he said, fuck you, I'm not wearing the blindfold. Behind him is a sort of a wall dotted with bullet holes, and the sky is in. I think Commando used to do this a lot. They used to use a lot of red skies in their books, in their covers and stuff, and it's yellow and red, so sort of a warning of a sky. And it's the moment before he dies, and they've included the story title, which is Take No Prisoners, which is done in a very sort of retro 50s, 60s kind of
cinema
kind of style.
Think of a Land of the Giants script.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So a really sort of dramatic print along the bottom there. He's wearing sort of Johnny English, wartime. It's evocative of, the Great Escape and that sort of thing.
He's refused the blindfold.
He has, which I love that, and he's got that sort of slightly sad, although slightly fuck you face on him, isn't he? Kill Gone. And it's just like I said, it's another one that it just tells a story, doesn't it? It tells a story. That is, I know I'm getting in the book. I would pick it up because that drama, that narrative in a single image, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I just love the fact that Commando put some beautiful covers out,
Yeah.
if there was a book that just of Commando covers, which I'm hoping there is, it would be lovely, wouldn't it? It would be a great.
There was a book that I recommended a long time ago now. It's called The Art of Command.
There is. Yeah.
I've got that. It's fucking ace.
That's a beautiful book.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
So just a bit of background. So the art is by Ken Barr. Ken Barr was, I think he was Scottish. Yeah, Scottish artist who lived in America for a lot of his time. Came back to the UK, where he sadly passed away a few years ago. You'd recognise his work. So he's not just a Commando artist, but he did the Marvel Preview magazine that featured the original Star-Lord stuff that Byrne drew and all those guys.
Okay.
He did some Planet of the Apes covers. Savage Sword of Conan, he did quite a few.
Wow.
Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazine. So he covered all the Warren Curtis. He did it creepy, eerie, all the sort of black and white, Vampirella, Marvel Chillers. He did some of the Doc Savage covers. He also drew paperback novel covers as well, which I think you can probably tell just from that single image.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of thing about him. He drew for Nebula Sci-Fi magazine, which was a sort of short story magazine back in the day. It's still going. He did the cover for a George Segal movie called The Terminal Man. And you'll know this one, but he did the movie poster for Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Oh, really?
The Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
With Jeff Bridges, wasn't it?
Yeah. A couple other things about him. He wrote for DC as well. He did Our Army at War, Our Fighting Forces, Star Spangled War Stories. But he was also the first artist to draw the losers in Our Fighting Forces.
Wow.
The losers, which later became the movie. You know, Jack Kirby did it for a while, didn't he? Joe Kubert did some stuff.
The losers are great.
Yeah, the wartime, the old school Second World War losers. I'm really a big fan of. And then they did Jock, and Andy Diggle did the comic that then became the movie. Yeah. There's a book called The Beast Within: The Art of Ken Barr, which came out in 2007, which you could probably find on eBay.
That's fun.
Yeah, but I don't know what do you guys? What's your take on it, guys?
Yeah, we've got the two soldiers, obviously, with like working the composition, like going straight at the guy. I mean, the guy's face is absolute like focus. Yeah. You've got like the framing of the wall behind it, which sort of brings you all in there. This is being me really pinicky.
That's fine.
He's take no prisoners, but he's obviously been taken prisoner.
Yeah, that's true.
maybe they're correcting an error. So I told you to take no prisoners. So get rid of it. Right.
There's something slightly off about the distance of them, where their guns are, and him in the distance. There's something slightly off about it. I can't quite put my finger on it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they're going to shoot his thighs. Does that make sense?
I mean, there's a painterly trick going on here, which is that if you look at the Nazi with the skull on his helmet, if you look at his eyelash, it's the exact same angle as the gun, as the bayonet.
Okay.
So it's a painter's trick of leading your eye by having somebody else's eye lead you into painting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because there's a few things going on with like perspective as well, like the wall in the background, but there's a world eye view, but then
it looks like some kind of sort of strange Twilight Zone episode, maybe, where there wasn't much money for the scenery. Yeah. It's almost that, isn't it?
And I always find it fascinating when it's such a bold sort of reddish, yellowish, this sort of fiery sky. And a lot of this cover is that, there's no, they're not filling it with text and stuff. It's,
but it also adds to the drama, both things.
And also, it immediately catches your eye. It immediately catches your eye as well. Yeah. And a little thing that also some people may want to make note of is if you look in the top left-hand corner, if ever you think, well, comics can't, comics can't last past a few issues. Yeah. Well, Commando is on issue 4,529, so
it's not stopping. Yeah. And I think this week there were 4.
Yeah,
weren't there?
There
were 4 choices. I'm just going to finish this one by saying it's slightly off. The image to me is slightly off.
Yeah.
But then again, I allow that. It's a comic. It doesn't have to be perfect. The drama sometimes needs that sort of thing,
And I do wonder whether or not, because it's, as you say, it's been repackaged. They've clearly repackaged it for the 50th anniversary. Yeah. So I've wondered if they've edited something from the original image, which changes the composition.
Maybe.
Yeah. I bet you Prolix will know who that actor is as well.
No doubt.
His name off the top of my head. I had it before we started recording, then I forgot it. I shouldn't have written it down.
He looks like maybe like Dirk. Is it Dirk Bogarts?
It's like a contemporary of Dirk Bogarts.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got that slightly gelled quiff, hasn't he? So slightly post-war Teddy boy, but pretending to be a soldier in the Second War. There's that going on, isn't there? Rebel Without a Cause kind of almost. Yeah.
But I know we talked about this in the message there, but we should probably just sort of verbalize it. Is that it's what I love is the boldness of going for a classic, traditional sort of 50s, 60s style of cover and still reprinting it. And I mean, even the new stuff that Commando's doing, it's still 1 foot firmly into its history of cover producing, and I really respect them for that.
Yeah, and they do tell good stories, and and you'll see like submarines emerging from the sea on covers, and battleships and tanks, and it's boys' own adventure stuff, isn't it? Really, but they do these well, and we moan about comics not being newsagents. This is in WH Smith's. Everyone you go into, this will be in it.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for it because it's only a small little square book.
It's only £1.50, isn't it?
Yeah, man, I would gladly draw some stories for them. I don't think that my drawing chops are up to, because they are really, really good. I don't know if you ever flip through them, but the artwork is stunning.
There's some great stuff in them. Yeah, there really is. They take submissions, I think. I know quite a few people who've written for them. Yeah.
I don't know they could do it for £1.50. That's
fantastic.
Good shout.
Okay, Majoki, who's next?
Dan, do you want to go?
Me, yes. I don't read this series, and I don't know anything about the artist that made it. So, but her name is Tiffany Terrell, and she's done work on The Dreaming and this current Lucifer series, which is 2018 onwards.
I think she's done the current Dreaming. It's not the original one, is it?
Yes, sorry, it's the current Dreaming, not the original. Okay. So this is for Lucifer issue 16 on DC's Black label, ages 17 plus, from obviously the Sandman universe. This caught my eye as we spoke before as like the original sort of the thumbnail, and I thought that looks interesting. There's a nice bit of like colour and contrast going there. And then when I clicked it bigger, I was like, oh, this is really nice. It's a nice little piece.
Yeah.
And again, from the other pieces, you've got some storytelling elements in there. The framing device of having like a figure silhouetted against like the kind of the glow of the background. The composition is all well put together. I mean, even the brushstrokes she's used to kind of draw the eye and everything down at that figure. It's just really well done. It totally works as a cover. I'm not sure if all their titles go for the masthead being at the bottom like that.
The top, you mean?
Well, on the
Lucifer
ones,
yeah.
Oh, that bit. Sorry, man. Yeah.
So
it's an interesting way of doing it because it's almost like they think that more people are going to buy in if it says Sandman than if it says Lucifer.
Yeah, I'm buying the Hellblazer, and then that's got a banner at the top. What it is now.
But I think I may be wrong, but all the Black Label DC books I've seen, the DC Black Label square or rectangle is down on the bottom left. So
okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if that means then that they try to put the titles down there. But if you're reading Constantine, then maybe they're not doing it to everyone.
Yeah. The only I'm going to play devil's advocate here with this, and I'm going to say it's a fault sometimes of some books I really like. The Hellboy and BPRD spring to mind, but I hope they're not all so stylistically similar. Because I go into a shop and I think, did I buy that one or not? Yeah. And I think with that sort of setting, you got the Sandman at the top and you got everything down the bottom, and they're going for this sort of iconic painterly, which looks lovely, but if they're all, you need to make
such a look, isn't it? Yeah, it's such a look that if this artist, just say this artist did all the covers for, just say Lucifer, Constantine, whatever, and it's a similar style and color palette.
Exactly the color.
You would think it's the same series.
Yeah, so have I fucking bought this already?
You would think it's exactly. That's why I downloaded that. That's why I downloaded that phone app, so I could work out which ones I had and which ones I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, this is a cover that's a wonderful example to me of like I'd have that as a print. Get rid of all the. I mean, yes, all of the other stuff is necessary. Your issue number and your title and stuff. But take all that away, put that in a frame and up on a wall, and
you'll probably get a variant somewhere that's just the cover. You do occasionally, not necessarily with issue 16, but a lot of issues will do that one. Then they'll just have a basic cover without,
it's almost got like a book cover feel as well. Beyond comics as well, isn't it? It almost looks like something that could be a prose cover for a fantasy novel of some kind.
It's definitely harking back to the old Vertigo as well. There's definitely what they're getting that feel for. Now they did away with Vertigo. They've got instead they've got Black Label, but it's definitely that evocative 90s fantasy, edgy fantasy horror stuff going on, isn't there? You know?
Like the Clive Barker overtones.
Yes, definitely. And it's probably a little bit why, going back to your criticism, Tony, that they're doing it like this, is they are, I suppose, without being able to use the Vertigo, I mean, they can if they want to, and I don't know why they don't, but without using the Vertigo name, trying to kind of make sure that there's some sort of cohesive brand for all of the series that are tied together. I'm sure they'll switch it up eventually.
I mean, these books are designed, same as Vertigo, really. These books are designed for trades. And I don't know if you know this, but at a certain point, certainly in the 90s, Vertigo was only making money because the British were buying them.
Yeah, really?
We were the big market for them.
What happened to Vertigo? Why did they decide to get rid of the label? Do you know?
I think it was just slowly declining, wasn't it?
Fair enough.
I think the sales were down. Other than that, I don't know, to be fair. I mean, they maintain other books aren't selling.
Well, WB's been consolidating quite a bit of their DC stuff, haven't they? So it's just unfortunately, I think too many of these comic companies are just being eaten alive by their parents who just don't understand that, you know, comics are a bit, they exist in their own universe, and they don't play by
anymore.
Yeah, and they don't play by regular publishing rules.
Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah. The other thing I'm going to ask about you guys, because you're all graphic designers and artists, is how do you feel about the word Lucifer? And there's lots of little icons in it. You've got like a crescent moon above the U. Yeah. You've got a diamond above the I, and you've got the cross line of the F going through and forming a I don't know, not a pitchfork, but a sort of.
It's almost.
It's like a trident,
trident, trident, a trident on the E. I think it's overdoodled. I'm going to say, from my point of view, I'm going to say it's too much. Take that crescent moon away. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I would say the crescent moon is the one I'd lose. Cause,
I don't mind it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I agree with you, Tony. I think you could probably get away with just the trident.
Yeah, it's a real eye drawer, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's very 90s.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're going for. I think they are going over the top. I mean, the cover is over the top.
Yeah. The cover is appealing to people who bought fantasy novels of a certain age. You know, they remember reading these gothic romances, and remember discovering Sandman in their mid-teens, and there's that sort of thing, isn't there? I think.
It's also appealing to the Gaiman fan. Do you know what I mean?
It's very Gaiman, and I mean there's sort of references like Klimt and Blain Decker in there, so it's.
You've got the yellow, the real glow of the sort of metallic yellow there, and gold, and definitely.
There's almost in that, like the way the silhouetted figure against the gold is. There's almost a bit of who's the guy that did the Star Wars covers, the posters?
Oh,
God.
Drew Struzan, yeah.
I'm gonna. Sorry, man. Sorry.
No, it's just saying that there's almost a hint of that.
Yeah. The central character, what I'm taking is a human or a magician of some kind. There's an Eastern influence possibly in that. With the hat and the cloak, that could if that had a sword, that would be a samurai. That character, there's almost that about it. Yeah, it's interesting.
And I wish you had mentioned that. So I was just going to say, I wish you hadn't mentioned that crescent moon now, because it's really bugging me. Because it implies that the U should be pronounced differently.
Yeah.
That's obnoxious now. You've ruined it for me.
Oh, not again. The other thing worth mentioning on this is the two immense hands or feet, they are claws on either side, intimating there's a much larger creature above, which is an interesting approach,
I thought those little glyphs on the text were supposed to kind of like try and make it seem like it was not foreign but alien, kind of you don't pronounce the word this way, or do you know what I mean? It's an outside entity.
I was thinking like Mesopotamian text.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe a callback to that.
Yeah. There you go.
Interesting.
There we go. So Russell, let's spin it around on you.
No. Let's
spin it around on you.
well, my one's a lot simpler than all of the others. My pick for this week was, strangely, another book that I haven't read, and it's Teen Titans number 38.
Oh yeah.
The cover is by, I believe, Bernard Chang.
Okay, like his stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this is a very bold, striking cover, white background, and you have these the main characters, aka the Teen Titans, I believe. They're all basically hanging, like Robin and someone else is hanging from the edge of a cliff, and the rest of the team are trying to keep them, just desperately working together to try and hold on to them. But the actual cliff edge itself, and this is the thing that really struck out to me, because I love, hand-drawn type is brilliant anyway, and also when you can, adding 3D to that sort of hand-drawn type is even better. And in the sort of the cliff face itself, because the cliff is all sort of dark and it's made of like cross-hatching and stuff, but it has the title for the book. It's one of those books that has the title for the issue, I guess, which a lot of DC books do, don't they? Now I think they do use it.
Right, okay.
They work in the title.
Yeah, they work in the title on the cover, don't they? And this just sort of says "Seize Your Destiny," but those words are big and bold and yellow, and 3D and sort of like, they're not merged into the cliff face to make it look like this cliff face. It's bold and it sticks out from it, but it's just that there's 3D, there's textures. I just love the work that Chang's done with the fonts on this. It just immediately stuck out to me.
Very Will Eisner.
Yeah,
Will Eisner. Or I was going to say a little bit Nick Cardy as well. That strong iconic image of but I get you with the Will Eisner thing. Yeah, definitely.
You don't miss it, because there's not. If you had put a background on this as well, if you had put a blue sky or a stormy sky, it probably would have drawn away from it. But you just having that white background, which has its place, not all the time. I'm gonna
play devil's advocate on that again, and I'm gonna say I don't like the title being in white. I don't like them covering it up
in the top.
Yeah, in the top Teen Titans, and I don't like the dead space bottom right.
I like the dead space bottom right, because that gives a real sense of like there's nothing, that's a drop below.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vince.
The way that the angle sort of from the edge of the cliff, it just gets bigger and bigger. It's almost cut in half. So that the bottom right has to be the biggest amount of white space in a sense, because then there's a real sense of.
But you can cause jeopardy without having that white. Or maybe it's me being a comic collector thinking, "Fuck me, I'll put that straight into a bag. I'll get dirty." But the top, they've cut. I understand, heads popping into titles of things, and something we talked about the other day with Mr. Liefeld's covers is too much of Titans is obscured.
Oh yes, yeah, completely. In terms of, and I think this is a similar thing with that Lucifer cover as well. The actual title of the books is almost the weakest part of the cover. Teen Titans, I mean, for me, I could just take that bit off this. I could take it off this cover, and it would,
I mean, full disclosure, I've bought this one. I haven't read it yet, to be fair.
Okay.
Well, I bought this one. When you close up on it, when you get it in real life, it's actually quite the characters are quite sketchy. Okay. They're not as there's a hard, sketchy line to, especially the last character who's hanging.
Yeah, that's a very sketchy character anyway, though. One, isn't it?
That lady on the far left with the purple trousers, have they missed a bit of her leg, because there's like a white knee?
It looks like they have, haven't they? Yeah.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she's got a rip in that knee. I don't know.
That should almost be black there, because otherwise her leg is really long, isn't it?
No, are you talking about the left leg?
Her left leg, yeah.
I think that that you got the character in between them with the red. They've got that.
Oh, that's the back flap of his costume.
Yeah.
I mean, technically that should be darker. But with two, it's against two black forms, so I guess they didn't want to go
But it's interesting though, isn't it? You're like, you're making a colour choice to make it stand out a bit, but it's confusing to some people. But we are looking at these covers probably more, a lot closer.
It's a good. This is what the editors should be doing. This is the details the editors should be going into.
Well, they probably are, I suppose.
Hopefully, yeah.
That grey is the same grey that they've used to shadow on her white skin, so that's like very similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
On her arm, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like this image though, and I do appreciate the bravery. I don't know if you want to call it bravery, the boldness of leaving so much white space. But I suppose for balance, you would almost want something slightly jutting out from the very top right. But I suppose the reason they haven't is to give the left-hand side as much weight as possible.
Yeah.
But it does feel slightly off balance. So I can see what you mean, Tony, by there being a bit of nothing on the right.
Okay.
Like maybe even just that staff, that little squiggle of the staff. If you would just put it, I don't know, 5 centimeters to the right, it might balance it out.
I think where that's because of the sketchy nature of this cover as well. When I looked at the staff,
you think it was an autograph?
At one point, I thought it was the signature because
me too, exactly, man. Yeah. Because it's a single line almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's got those sort of dirty ink dots around it as well. I thought, it's some weird autograph. I thought exactly the same thing, mate. Yeah.
I wondered what the composition would be like if the cliff was angled more, so it looked like it was more coming down as opposed to pointing up to the top right, because just a bit more jeopardy to it.
Yeah, it does remind me a bit of the
falling.
Do you remember Dragonfire, the Doctor Who episode with Sylvester McCoy, where at the end of the episode...
Oh, yeah, I remember them all, Tony.
Yeah, he didn't. End of episode 1, they didn't have an ending, so he just hung himself off a cliff.
Oh, okay.
And this has got a touch of that. They want a bit of jeopardy in a cover, so they hang a couple of characters off who could easily have just pulled them up.
Yeah.
One's got super speed, one's Lobo's daughter. There's no way they can't just pull these two people up off the cliff. But there's like purposeful, faux jeopardy to make a nice cover.
Yeah. Okay, but this goes into the covers though being what was it you said Dan earlier, flavor of the book and not necessarily indicative of the narrative.
Yeah, I suspect probably doesn't happen inside, I'm going to say.
Yeah. I mean, how often have you looked at the cover and then actually found that exact scene in the book?
Yeah.
Rarely happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at it quickly, at a glance, it's the Teen Titans working together to save one of their own. That's the narrative being told to me.
Do you know what it looks like to me? It looks like someone's drawn over a sketch cover. That's a horrible thing to say. But if you took the coloured image off it, it would just be a sketch cover.
Yeah, I can see.
Is that because of the sketchy nature of the artwork, though? But I love.
No. I don't mean that. I mean because you've got that sort of just white.
Because of the white.
You've got the white in the Teen Titans.
Oh yeah, that's because whenever you see so many sketch covers that haven't been drawn on yet, and it's just all white with a logo on it. Yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? But maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe that's the cliff's edge. Maybe that's the sails on the book. They're on a cliff's edge.
Right, so probably. Tony, should we swivel round to your
back
next...
to RMO, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, gone.
Dan's orders all over the shop.
I'm completely all over the shop. Yeah. I was just kind of concerned that we've done like a fair bit of time on the first 4 covers.
Okay, so I we've got to talk about these Liefeld covers, right?
Yes.
My favorite is what's the new character's name with the X helmet?
Yeah, Major X.
It's just what the hell posture is this?
Look what's happening. Is he one of those kids with hair lips now, Wolverine? Yeah. Is he? That's the one thing he can't recover is his hair lip.
Look at that Onslaught Reborn cover and look at the White Witch's hand that she's using shooting the magic. It's awful.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Oh god, it's terrible.
Look at Iron Man. He's turned into a trout.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you close up in on Iron Man's face, so everyone close up.
I really don't want to.
And just close up on your iPad. Guys, that is the face I make when I look at Liefeld.
Guys, can we please? I'm going to have to add these images into the document now. Please.
Awful.
If you look at page 2,
I don't want to hate on Liefeld because it's easy, but I don't know how he keeps on getting fucking work. I really don't.
Cover work. I don't know how he gets cover work.
It's because he sells books. People, there's still a lot of people who like his work.
It's a nostalgia thing.
I mean, like there's that Wolverine cover with Cable and the ex bloke.
Don't upset me, Dan.
That like the he is leaning on the colorist.
Oh yeah, there. Big time.
The colorist is like carrying life all the way on that one.
There's no background.
It's just
who's got time to draw backgrounds when you're worrying about button-up flies? Did you get those commercials?
We've seen them. I don't think we got them. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, book 2.
All right.
2. RMO. Off you go.
So I thought maybe you guys had already picked this one in the past, just because it's of its history and it's so loaded. But I'm a big. I mean, you guys know that I'm a big fan of EC.
Yeah.
I just think I don't know that there was ever a bullpen as talented as the EC bullpen during the 50s. So it's issue 22 of Crime Suspense Stories. I think that's great, isn't it? Suspense Stories.
Yeah.
It's the infamous Johnny Craig axe murderer holding the decapitated head of a woman.
The infamous cover.
Well, yeah. I mean, this was held up. This was held up in the floor of the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, this was the main one, wasn't it? The one they started with, I think. Yeah.
To talk about the seduction of the innocents.
Well, the fact wasn't Gaines asked. They said, "Well, he's chopped head off. It couldn't be any worse than this." And he said, "Oh, it could be. You could have blood coming out of her neck." and he said that in the hearing.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Well, there's blood on the axe," and he went, "All right, I'll give you that one." Yeah.
Might not be her blood.
Yeah.
There's an ambiguity, isn't there?
The thing though is that like Craig was quite brilliant about it, because you could make the argument that you're assuming that he's cut the head off, but you don't see the actual severing. There could be two people.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, it isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and you talked about, Tony, the obvious sort of the elephant in the room, sort of violence against women. So I think you've got to talk about this. I mean, this would not probably pass an editor's rubber stamp today.
It's a weird one, isn't it? It's a strange one. Politically we're much a changed society, but the censorship would still affect us, I think, in a way, around a cover like this.
I think what it is, it's not the decapitated head, it's the kind of sexualized legs. Really.
Yeah.
The skirt is a little bit too high. There's a kind of an assumption of
there's the rape
something else that's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably the sort of the violence, or the image of violence, more so than the decapitation.
Well, you've got the guy's groin right there with her mouth drooling,
and he's thrust a bit forward. Stances.
You could say the axe is a phallus in a way. It's like it's like a guitarist's extension. But anyway,
the other stylistic choice is the eyes being open. I think that's a big thing. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
A lot of them would have closed eyes, or
this cover would not work if those eyes were closed.
Yeah,
because it just, I don't know, it just wouldn't. But it is. But it's so well designed. It's so well designed. The everything from the sort of slope of the figure of the man. So you it's that the Kirby line almost of so you follow the end of the Suspense Stories down his form to the head, and then back up to the axe, and then there's that little drip that drips right onto her. Obviously not dripping on her knee, but that sort of leads your eye there.
Yeah.
Back out of the page. It's so well done. Even when you consider the constraints that these guys had to deal with about how text heavy these covers were.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's got less than 2/3 of a page to play with on that.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of EC magazines and the sort of banner element they had at the top of the page. Plus, you've got that big yellow box mid left.
Yeah.
There's fuck all space on there left, isn't there?
Yeah, he's got 65% of the page to work.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I do admire the fact that he's got his name in it as well. a period certainly in UK comics when no one would have got their name on anything. You got Johnny Craig bottom right, and not small, you know.
Yeah. In stylized. So many of the artists were trying to they'd hide their signatures.
Yeah.
But EC was very good about letting their artists, sort of be named. I mean, and they obviously were, but people wrote letters specifically to individual artists to say how much they liked them on a certain book when they moved over from war stories to horror or to sci-fi.
It makes you wonder what our comics would be like if we hadn't have had, the 10-cent plague. If we hadn't have had all that, it's interesting, isn't it?
I think this is a cover that it's a milestone cover. It is genuinely a classic cover, whether you like it or not. I think anyone who has a passion for comics would probably know the cover we're talking about.
They should do, shouldn't they?
You should sort of seek it out.
Do you know what I like? Sorry, mate. There were just two things I like about it. Is the fact this geezer, they make him a redneck. So he's got like hairy arms. Yeah. He's got a belt that is clearly sort of tied onto his trousers, isn't it? It's almost like
no
weird,
belt loops.
I mean, he's got those trousers pretty high. This could be Simon Cowell.
Could be, axe murderer. And his right hand is, let's admit it, a little too large.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this sort of beast of a man's hand on an axe, isn't it? Yeah.
It's interesting what you said, Russell, about like kind of the violence towards women being like very different nowadays. You only have to recall, I think it was last year or year before when they did that variant cover for Batgirl, and it was a callback to The Killing Joke. Do you guys know the cover I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
No, I don't remember.
I'll see if I can Google it quickly. But essentially, it was like a homage to the Killing Joke cover, and it had the Joker in the same outfit.
The Joker.
And he'd painted a blood smile onto Batgirl.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And it got knocked back by the editorial team because they didn't like the kind of the message or the.
Didn't it go online and then it caused a huge fuss?
That's the usual, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't really give a fuss if editorial said, no, we're not going to do this. And then you get outraged because they didn't do something which they was going to outrage people. But
there was the one from ages ago as well, which was the men's magazine homage. Was it Dynamite going to put it out? And it was like a tribute to Isla She-Wolf of the SS.
Yes.
Did you ever see that one? And it was alluded to that the woman was transsexual in the picture. And then they removed a load of the text. I think Paul Cornell kicked off about it online. Yeah. That's another one. Yeah. But I think a lot of the time people don't understand this homage thing sometimes,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose it goes to show that I think a lot of people probably don't have this is not gatekeeping at all. No. I don't think that you should have to have an encyclopedic knowledge of things that go before you.
Yeah.
There's a thing in I mentioned like Hogarth in the reference to this, where in political cartoons, it's really well known that political cartoons reference cartoonists who've gone before.
Yeah.
Always with the line of
that's the joke.
Yeah, and usually it's apologies too. And if you're a reader of political cartoons and you see apologies to such and such, like George Cruikshank, then you know that this is a riff on something else. Maybe there's something along that line that we need to start adopting into comics, just to let people know that this is meta. We're not just.
Oh, and we see it so much in comics. How many times have we seen someone holding the dead body in their arms that's a homage to, Crisis in Infinite Earths. There's a great Facebook group. I know, Dan, you're a member of it, called Comic Swipes.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And
Comic Swipes, yeah.
Eric Larson's very chatty on there, and he talks about homages compared to swipes. And there's some great homages out there. There's, loads of them are some of the famous sort of situations you've seen,
But that whole group is the perfect illustration that people don't understand the difference between homages and swipes. Because often you see someone says, "Oh, look, this person's swiping this," and it's like, that's a homage. It's obviously a homage. There's no swipe in there.
Yeah.
It's when someone tries to do it covertly and nick a character from G.I. Joe and trace it and put it in their comic. That's the swipe.
Yeah.
But when you're kind of sending up another cover or doing your kind of nod to it, they can't really have you on that. But,
I mean, Just one look at like the kind of universal political landscape will let you know that people don't really get nuance en masse.
Not at all.
Yeah. Sarcasm, satire. There's a lot of things missing out online, aren't there, these days? But I'm willing to bet that there's got to be homage covers to that one, surely, in some horror books somewhere.
Well, there's a book. I was looking at the covers coming out next week, and there's one. It's not a complete direct homage, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some nod to it, where somebody's shoved like a head into a bag, but there are a number of elements that kind of echo it. I mean, there's the sort of camera angle and the head, obviously. Where I think it's one of those covers that I think people, historians or people who appreciate aficionados of comics who do comics would love to sort of figure out a way to slip in. Well, we're all just sort of trying to make each other laugh, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's a selling point, someone to the homage stuff. It often is. It's like a cool little, this Dynamite book is doing. The famous Steranko one with the Hulk holding up the Incredible Hulk sign. Straining to hold up the Rock. How many times have they done that? They did a Hercules like that. They did loads, didn't they? And then I kind of like that. I like that little homage.
Well, it's part of the language. It's something that it's part of the culture.
And people will talk about it online, which is a good thing, and it will educate people. And they go, "Oh, Steranko, who's Steranko?" I gotta like that.
Did one with the image creators about a year or two ago, where they homaged each other's comics.
They did, didn't they? That's right.
So, like Invincible did a homage to the cover to Youngblood 1, with all the characters in the pose. It's nice.
There's a lot. I know there was almost in a couple of Spawn covers was an homage to Spidey 1 that McFarlane had done as well, wasn't there?
Definitely. That kind of crouching one.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Cool.
So on to is it Tony's turn next?
It's me now.
Yeah.
Right. I make no apologies whatsoever for this one, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about in relation to it. So I'm talking about Avengers 181, which is cover art by George Perez. It's inked by Terry Austin. Now, anyone wonders how good an inker is, they should look at the work of Terry Austin. His stuff with Byrne especially was amazing. Interiors were by David Michelini, John Byrne and Gene Day. There's another 3 names. And it was edited by 2 people, Roger Stern and Jim Salicrup. Now, I mention the editors because they will obviously have an input into this. Now, as a kid, the Avengers lineup means fuck all now, isn't it? You don't get kids running across the playground shouting Blades and the Avengers, do you? Do you know what I mean? But in my day as a kid, people would run about. I got this originally. My version of this was the Marvel Superheroes. I think they recreated it, and there was a sort of interior poster of the art without the writing on it. And it was the Avengers lineup was a big thing, and you used to think, I hope Yellow Jacket's in, or I hope the Beast and Wonder Man are in it, this sort of thing. And the fact they put this on the cover, they knew that the lineup change would be important. Now, the lineup in this one, so that's the central character is Henry Gyrick, who was a sort of thorn in the side of the Avengers for quite a long time. And he turns up and he says, look, the government are taking over. The government are dictating who should be in the Avengers. And weirdly, for its time, it was almost like a precursor to Civil War. The government taking over and running a super group. It was almost like that. And it was almost because they basically said, right, we need a Black Avenger. I think they say that. And I think Black Panther says, not me. And they get the Falcon in. And because of that, Hawkeye's sort of thrown out. And Hawkeye becomes the angry white guy.
Okay.
It's a really interesting story. And it's... Talk about working on a cover. I mean, Perez is famous for the amount of people he puts in a panel or on a page or on a cover, isn't he? But everyone in this is so well rendered. And if you look at each face is a story on its own.
Yeah.
You can see the Beast thinking about what's going on. You can see Captain America holding back Thor. You can see Wanda looking worried. There's a different story in each face on it, and I really like it. And the other reason I really like it, and the reason I sort of chose it, was 2 reasons. One, corner box. Always have a corner box in a comic. I love a corner box. And the other reason is we had a chat about this, Russell, didn't we, where you said this is a very DC cover, and I agree completely, man, because DC covers would always have stuff like, there'd be a Justice League cover where someone would say one of you is going to die, or they'd have a Legion of Superheroes cover where they'd say kid is guilty of murder, or they'd have Superman family would say Lois Lane would be saying, no, Superman, I'm going to marry this elf, This sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, my hands have turned to Velcro. How can this be?
Yeah. The most famous one was the one with the Flash looking at the reader saying, if you don't buy this comic, the Flash will die. It's that sort of famous one. And in this, they tell a story. There's a whole story going on. There's a book on this cover, isn't there? 7 of you will remain as Avengers. The rest of you are out. And it's a story. And even he's holding something that says top secret. So he's him the power. You've got even the Guardians of the Galaxy are featured in it. You can see the original run of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Martin X and all these guys, the ones that, for those who watched the movie, the ones that Stallone was in charge of. So this
Yondu's in there, so at least there's some
he's just far left
for the uninitiated.
And you've got Jocasta. You've got some real sort of, for someone who seeing Marvel characters was a little bit like train spotting. I had to know who they all were as a kid. There's a lot going on there, And the Guardians of the Galaxy hadn't been in that many comics at this point, less than 40, I would suggest. And it's like, what? Who's he? What's that about? And it was a really exciting period for me. The period from sort of 150 to 210 of the Avengers was my sort of real golden age of the Avengers. And there was some, you got Byrne and you got Perez, and they got some really great artists. Carmine Infantino, Al Milgrom did some. There's some really good stuff going on, and it was the one to watch. This and the Uncanny X-Men were the ones that you would watch. You would see what's going on. And I really love it. I think it's really good. What are your takes, guys, on it? I'd love to hear what you think.
I mean, I love a group shot anyway, and this one's got some of the classic characters.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting. Well, they always seem to put Captain America and Iron Man next to each other in some way. I think partially because those colours pop against each other. They always just seem to look good next to each other. The one minor quibble I have, it's just a Perez cover and it's just awesome, is just quickly looking at it, and it's Hawkeye's arm. And I have a reason for this, because quickly looking at it, because of the way that Miss Marvel is stood next to him at the same sort of height, if you quickly look at it, it could look like that's her right arm.
And I tell you what, Hawkeye's right arm and Hercules' left arm, they're holding Yellow Jack's butt, aren't they? Yellow Jack's butt.
They're just that would explain the look on his face.
They're just cupping him gently, aren't they?
I quite like the Black Widow's reaction. She's kind of hugging herself, this is bad news, and I've got to comfort myself. And then you got her on her right, the Wasp, who's holding her husband's. Were they married at the time? Yellow Jacket and Wasp.
Yeah, they were.
Kind of very coupley kind of thing of one hand resting on the other. It's got lots of nice little touches like that.
And then Beast is having a crap.
Yeah. And it also the best Wonder Man costume. There's no doubt that's Red Safari jacket outfit and polo neck was the best ever. My personal.
It's so Steranko, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So that's mine. I like a story on a cover, and I think word balloons. I think they have their place occasionally.
I think they're fun. I mean, talking about sort of from a sort of an artistic perspective. I mean, obviously it's very well drawn. The composition, it's so messy. There's so much going on there. They've really thrown the entire kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
But you was it Vince? You mentioned the Cap and Iron Man together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look around the table, everybody has been placed next to somebody who is complimenting them in the color scheme.
Yeah.
So you've got Yellow Jacket, yellow, and Hawkeye in the purple with Miss Marvel there with the yellow again. You've got, obviously Scarlet Witch and Vision are going to be together, but the red and the yellow and the green, there's just a lot of sympathy.
Okay.
Yeah, and Black Panther sort of sits on his own, almost in a central figure. It's almost like a shadow in itself, isn't it?
Well, he draws the eye in.
Yeah,
he does. You kind of forget he's there, and then you look back, and his eyes are there, aren't they? Yeah.
So
I really like that.
So, Perez has done whatever he can to make what should be a mess in anybody else's hands work pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I think having Black Panther in the middle there, because he's kind of, if he was on the outskirts, you might gloss over him completely because of the black negative space. But when he's in the middle, it helps frame all the colour around him.
Absolutely.
And bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was next to my Farrah Fawcett Majors poster.
Nice.
Nice.
It's weird. Without the balloon, that cover doesn't work whatsoever. Like the text.
It doesn't. Yeah,
it has to have that in.
But look how he's left the space for it. That's the good thing about it, and that's just perfect. Yeah. Jocasta looks great. The blue, the silverness of, like you say, next to, is it Martin X? Who's the guy? Yeah.
Martin X.
Next to him, that works really. You're right, Russell.
Who's the chap next to Jocasta on the right with the blonde hair?
Is that Quasar?
It's not. Yeah. It's not Captain Marvel.
It must be Quasar.
Is it
no, was Quasar around at that time?
Maybe just will have been in Marvel 2 and 1, but I'm wondering if it's Captain Marvel.
All right.
Marvel. Yeah, Marvel.
No, Captain Marvel. Marvel was a different one, but I suppose he was. That was his real name. Yeah. So Captain Marvel before, when he was a geezer.
Yeah. Okay.
This cover in some ways has definitely played some sort of influence in the one I'm going to pick for my next one. But before that, Dan Butcher.
I'm going to go for the Spectacular Spider-Man.
I love this one. Yeah,
so good. That is so good.
Yeah.
It's Spectacular Spider-Man 101. It's done by John Byrne. I think he's just all on his own.
I'm so glad you talked about Byrne, man. I love Byrne's covers so much.
Yeah. For me, Spider-Man, with the original costume, if you said to anyone else, right, redesign this costume, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to come up with a pale imitation. I know we've spoken about this before. There was a fan design.
Oh, okay.
But didn't you mention this, Tony? Like someone designed it and then Jim Shooter bought it off of them.
I'm not sure. I remember there being a bit of wasn't there a legal action of some kind?
I can't remember.
But someone claimed they designed it and showed it to him.
I think you're right. Yeah. Is it? What was that Marvel history? What was that book?
Oh, the history of the Marvel Universe. That one.
No, there's the orange cover. It was about inside the bullpen.
That's the one. Yeah, I think it's Sean Howe. Yeah.
I have a feeling that they talk about this cover and about that suit.
Okay.
Okay.
I may be wrong. If anybody else has read this, then by all means say. But
I can't remember. It's been a while. Yeah.
It rings a bell that something about the Byrne really wanted to go for the all black cover, and they're still not sure about the suit design.
They experimented with covers at the time. Wasn't there a photo cover in the same period?
I remember photo covers.
His mask off.
Yeah. Wasn't a fan of photo covers.
No.
Yeah. There's not that. The worst one were those ones where they did the fucking cat covers on Valiant. Remember them?
Oh,
That's a couple of years ago.
No. I missed that.
Oh, my God.
They got cats and basically dressed them up in the characters' costumes and did it for the entire range.
Oh.
And when you see one, it's like, okay, fair enough, take it. But they the entire range, it's like, that's not really that good.
That made me clench my arse when you said that.
And I think they followed it up by having cosplayers do the cover, which, Okay, moving on.
The perspective on this and the black and white is absolutely stunning.
So good.
And I've just noticed, turning my screen upside down, it's actually the image is upside down.
It's upside.
Turn whatever.
Oh, right. You mean he's going up?
It almost.
It could be either.
Okay.
It could be either. For my eye, it looks my eye. It works better when it's upside down.
It does. The left arm is more discernible when you turn it upside down. To me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's fascinating. I think because for me, looking at it, as it stands.
Yeah, you can see the top of the buildings. Of course, it is meant to be the other way around.
Yeah. The top of the buildings are at the bottom of the page.
Yeah,
and that was kind of off to me.
Burns a tricky motherfucker.
Yeah.
Wait, is it, or is that the bottom right? Is that just the top of another building?
Yeah, tip of a building. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's the tip of the building. He's flipping off the top.
Yeah, okay.
That's what's fascinating about this because I think it is the right way up, and yet it works either way. I mean,
you can read it on the other way around.
That's pardon the pun, but that's a spectacular work of art when you can get something that it's hard enough to get something to work that looks symmetrical left and right, let alone when it's fucking upside down.
How many times do you think he drew this?
Oh, God.
Yeah. And what technique did he use? I'm interested to see how he did it. But Byrne had some really groundbreaking covers at the time. You've got to look at some of those Alpha Flight ones. What's the Alpha Flight one, which is all the sort of sticks crisscrossing and one of the Alpha Flight characters is stuck in the middle of them. It looks like a fucking maths problem.
Somebody was talking about they had to do something similar recently, and they were I think they actually approached Byrne and said, "How did you do that?" This is a couple of years ago now. Oh, it was an X-Men cover.
Okay.
It's I'll have a look for it later, but that one is incredible. I'm not a great fan of the way Byrne draws, but I'm sorry, it's something about his faces that I never warmed to. But
I thought we were friends, Russell.
Compositionally, he's really, really, really talented. Yeah. I mean, this cover says it all, doesn't
it? Yeah. He's a good storyteller as well. Thing is, got to remember back at this time, he was doing 2 books a month.
That's crazy.
Amazing.
I would have thought at the time when this particular issue came out, it must have stood out from all of the others because what it is, it's just straight. It's pretty much a black and white cover.
Yeah, it's kind of the kind of the negative space is like defines figure and shape where him like with the lights and the buildings behind him.
I don't know about you, but shape. I really miss the Spidey mask in the bottom left-hand corner of comics.
See somebody who might find this comic on its own in the wild might think, oh, that was purposely there, but that image was on all of that month's comics. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So the bottom left-hand Spidey mask, because for some reason, I'm not sure the technicalities of it, they did away with the line thing, you know, when you scan
the ISBN,
the ISBN thing, and they did away with that. So rather than put that in there, they had different things that appeared, but mostly it was that Spider-Man face, and they had a couple of the webbed versions of it. But it kind of strange because it gives it a double corner box, doesn't it, in a weird way?
Could you imagine if because for a long time it was Cap's face in there? Yeah. Could you imagine how much this would have been thrown off?
You
have this big splotch of blue just in the middle there. It wouldn't.
This would not work.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about this is you can't help but see Toth when you look at this.
Yeah.
Just smacks of his kind of reductionism.
Yeah.
But I could stare at this cover for.
It just kind of speaks for itself. Really, it's so powerful. Such a great.
And who's got the chops out there to do this for their character? I bet there's people thinking. Somebody suggested, some editor's gone, oh, could you do I don't know, Exo Man of War in the style of Spectacular Spider-Man 1? And he's gone, well, I'll think about it. You know, there's a bit of that going on. I'm sure there has been in there because it can't have been simple to do.
Yeah.
No, Sam Nee's the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Sam Nee would do this. I think he's, like you say, he's got that reductionist style, hasn't he? Yeah.
But it'd only work for certain characters if they're sort of so well known and their kind of iconography and look. It plays to like such the strengths of the character of Spider-Man and the costume. Yeah, it would be very tricky to do it.
Which is the point of them, isn't it? It's the point of a character's costume sometimes.
And you can quite easily be selling an iPod at the same time.
The thing, I bet there's a lot of artists out there who thought, thank fuck, I don't have to draw that webbing anymore.
Yeah. And this is another cover that, for me, take the flashes off, take the title off, take everything off, put it in a frame, put it on the wall, and you just stare at it.
Absolutely.
What's that electric ink you can do that glows? I'd get a version of it like that.
That's a good shout.
When I was really off my face on mushrooms, that'd be fine.
So check this out.
Every Thursday.
Morning.
Right, so...
should we go for another round of covers?
We've got one more from Vince, haven't we?
Yeah, Vince. Sorry, Vince. I'm really sorry. I'm completely off my numbers game tonight.
Well, we'll do this one, then we'll quickly do the last round because I'm aware time's ticking on. My last choice is one of my favourite covers of all time.
Oh, here we go. Good. Also one of the most homaged.
Yeah, one of the most homaged. One of the most probably developed as well, because I know this is the cover that started here, and then you'd see from the artist himself, Kevin Maguire. You'd see it. He's done it several times with different lineups. This is the cover for Justice League issue 1. It says at the top, first issue, a return to greatness for the all-new Justice League. And this is the classic sort of... It's not a huge lineup. There are 10 characters just staring up into camera. And this was, I think, the star-making turn for Guy Gardner.
Yeah.
A character that... You just look at him and you want to punch him in the face.
Yes.
But he was the Green Lantern for this group.
Well, as happens, it's not that issue. Is it the issue 3? Is it? I can't remember.
It's one of the early issues with the classic
the
one punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Guy Gardner's got the speech bubble. There's a little speech bubble with him just sort of saying, "Want to make something of it," which says the attitude. I mean, this was when the book hit that, the classic bwahaha phase that is so near and dear to my heart when I was reading like reprints of it.
It lasted for just such a short little period before it entered its own fucking mediocrity, didn't it? But there was a period of 3 years where it was just brilliant to read.
It was just absolutely amazing. The characters, taking these long established characters and just adding this little bit. I mean, I think personally Batman doesn't really need to be in a group book. He's a solo character. He's part of a team.
Same as Spider-Man.
And the way that they worked him into this series was phenomenal. Almost like the father that's like constantly looking at his bickering children and going, "Oh, Jesus Christ."
Mm-hmm. I'm going to play devil's advocate again with a point on this. Batman's shoulders are too small. Look at him against.
I can see about that.
Look at him against Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle's cut. He's a tough fucker there. Batman looks like he's an old man wearing a trench coat.
Yeah,
but Batman's got the whole cape thing working against him, though.
I know.
Yeah. Whereas you could tell, like Maguire loved drawing like Blue Beetle and like Booster Gold and stuff.
Yeah.
This cover is attitude, which is and for an issue 1 cover, you also got the classic DC bullet in the top left. I don't know why. That was when I was reading DC properly. That it was at that time, so it's always got a soft spot in my heart. And I just love it. It's an iconic image. You got all the characters who just seem to be on the same page with the attitude that they have.
Giffen and DeMatteis are a great team. They wrote some great stuff. Yeah. They came back and did. Was it previously called the Justice League or something weird like that, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which is actually quite good. They've got like a stupid office block. And this sort of thing.
This cover as well also was when there was Justice League Antarctica, which was a one-off annual, which is a brilliant issue.
I've never heard of that.
Oh,
I've not read that
because they're all facing in the opposite direction. And
right.
I think there's a Green Lantern called Gnort or something like that, and he's turning around looking at the viewer. So
I remember. Yes,
yeah. That's
when it became international for me. It began to decline a bit. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I wasn't enjoying it quite as much when they ended up doing like 100-page issues, didn't they, and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not getting this quite as much.
So you will see this cover online. I mean, there's not much to say about it. A team shot is great, but this was a bit different from the. This is probably at the time where there was lots of teams running towards the reader, or an action scene.
Well, exactly. I mean, what would you have done? A first issue, you've got a completely new lineup, and you've got to explain somehow. You've got to try and get all these figures in so that you can see what the new team is and show a threat.
Yeah.
Forget it.
I mean, it's like what's the DC the sci-fi team that's got like a billion different. It's the space one. I've forgotten the name.
Legion of
Superheroes. With that's got like a million characters, and sometimes you look at just a wall of characters, you think, who's who? I don't. What? Yeah. Where am I going to start? I mean, if you read the book, then you're going to know. But whereas this was, you had 10 characters, and also you've got Batman in there, who normally might threaten to overtake a team picture. Certainly, I think with a lot of modern books, they put him front and centre and everyone else is second tier. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, he's part of the team. I think Guy Gardner's probably got more of a presence than Batman has in this. So, I love it. I just... also, that angle is probably more difficult to draw than you'd think.
I reckon a lot of reference photos were taken.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah. To get that just right.
You don't have to worry about the people in the back so much because they're hidden by the people in the foreground. But
it's definitely been homaged a bunch of times. This one.
Yeah. So that's my one. And I was thinking when we were talking about that Avengers one, I suddenly thought, there's with the the color composition and placement of people. This is definitely there's an influence there from that sort of cover that I hadn't thought of before. Because if you think about this cover, you've got 3 guys that have a lot of green going on, and they've placed them in just the right area. So that's mine. Right.
Yeah.
So that was our first 2 rounds. We're going to have to quickly go through the 3rd round, aren't we?
Okay, so let's do a quick one on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. So Russ, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Trying to remember what I picked now. Who is it?
Was this the Francavilla?
The Black Widow. Yeah. So, I mean, what series hasn't he done a cover for, a variant cover for? So this is Black Widow, Francisco Francavilla. This is like an issue 0. I think it was this was a kind of like a trailer comic for what was going to be another series, which I hope he does some more of, because it was really good. But you've got, I mean, the sort of overwhelming feeling you get is a kind of, with so much of his work, is like a 1950s, 60s lobby poster for a film. You just get this sense of this looming Black Beetle character over the entire scene. His black cape, which then feathers out into a doorway where a security guard is poking his head through, and then just this sort of ominous Colt 911 sort of in the foreground with a hand.
It's a pulp cover.
Sort of touching it.
Definitely,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he knows. He knows composition so well. There's something I think he has a bit of a shtick where he does leave some of his inking a bit rougher than I would like. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really matter, because he knows color and he knows composition so well that you're not drawn to the details. Your eye constantly comes back to the overall image. It's really hard with his work to not just see it.
He did also sort of, I mean, this cover's a good example of it. He hit this sort of colour palette, and it was almost like he hit a certain colour palette and just went, I love that. I just want to use that colour palette in pretty much everything I do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of his covers use a similar, or one-off pieces, a lot of like his fan art piece of like Friday the 13th or things like that, use similar sort of colour styles, don't they?
I'd say I'm not a fan of his interiors. I don't mind his covers, although I know there's been a couple of hit pieces on him, haven't there, about nicking covers and stuff, like images. But I like his iconic work on covers, but I don't find his interiors as fun. I'll be honest with you. I find them a little too rough-edged, a little too basic.
They can be, I think because he doesn't have the overall composition to kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, sort of rest on, that the panels can look a bit unfinished. Like I said, there's something about his inking that I think is a bit rushed, or it's not quite as fine as it could be.
Yeah.
But there's something about his compositions that they just draw me in.
One thing I like about this is the offset door. So the door's not straight, and I kind of like that there's an otherworldly, where's he coming from, what's the background, sort of strange fix of the door. The thing I don't like about it is the signature. I think it's too bold. It's too in your face. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, it looks like what's that, a bedside cabinet or something? And I realise it's his signature. Yeah.
I don't like the fact the Murder in the Museum, that box touches the gun.
Yeah.
Tangent.
Yeah. It's a nice
never
gun.
Touch the gun. You know what I mean?
Touch it just once. Move your hand up and down.
It might go off. It's that time of night, isn't it?
Interesting. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. Yeah, I do like it. I like the boldness of it. I'm a big pulp fan. I read a lot of pulps, even now, and I like the pulp style of it. It's evocative of a period, isn't it?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily need it, but and sometimes they go too far with things like this. But maybe a little bit of Photoshop jiggery pokery to make it look like a torn pulp novel might have.
They do that.
Yeah, they do that a bit. Yeah, they do that a bit.
But it's full of stuff that is still that draws my eye badly. The Dark Horse emblem doesn't work top right. I know he's won an award, but it's that whole second band of the Beetle emblem, the 0, the 299, and then the Will Eisner. You've won it, and then the signature. There's little bits of detritus on it that I don't quite like enough. I think he could have stripped that back because it is an iconic, bold, not basic, but straightforward image that works well as a shadow.
See, but I would argue that there's a little bit of I mean, that's the pulp aesthetic.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that it isn't quite. I mean, there's something what I love about Francavilla is it his work looks like it comes out of a fanzine.
Yeah.
But it's like the best done fanzine you could imagine. So I think if everything was a little bit too polished, it would lose a bit of that pulp quality.
Yeah. I don't know about the Dark Horse emblem. I think he's done everything else, hasn't he?
Yeah.
The Dark Horse emblems is literally, he's had to put that on.
You can imagine that Dark Horse emblem probably was originally meant to be between the T and the BL, just above the title.
Yeah. That's how I see it. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? But I mean, hopefully, when he gets to do a trade of it or something like that, that'll come off. Yeah. Some of that stuff will come off, and then you'll probably get a slightly cleaner page.
The first trade for the Black Beetle was phenomenal.
Was it like a hardback trade? Was it?
Yeah. And the back matter is just like fake ephemera that he's created.
Cool. Yeah.
Lobby cards, postcards, playbills, stuff like that. It's really good, really good.
Oh, nice.
That's going in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a Saturday morning cereal, isn't it? Is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And from cereal to brunch, Tony. Tony, what's yours?
How could I talk about covers and not talk about this? Probably my most talked of cover.
This might be one of my favourite covers.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and this is talk about wanting to know more about the story. This is probably my best example I can think of that. So it's Carthago, Book 5, The City of Plato, written by Christophe Beck. The cover is by Eric Henino, and I think interiors are by Milan Jovanovic. I'm not actually 100% sure. This is published by Humanoids. We fell in love with this comic, a couple of years ago now, I'm going to say.
Yeah,
maybe
a couple of years.
Yeah, and we devoured it on Comixology, and I've since bought the hardback and all that sort of thing. And it is a beautiful book. But what the image shows is, if you read the book, you'll realise it's a young girl stuck on a section of. It's hard to tell what it is. It's either a section of ship or a section. I'm going to say ship. It's not ice. Is it ice, guys?
No, it's a section of a ship.
Yeah, she's got a medical kit next to her. She's wearing a life preserver. She's got rope. She's surrounded by rope, and a megalon is swimming underneath, with the tip of its fin just breaking the water near her. And there's this huge image of this huge beast that has been fucking killing everyone in this comic series. It's just like an unstoppable beast, and you've got this small girl floating above it on this sort of wedge of a ship that's sort of broken off. And it's just very strong. I remember we talked to... Who was the guy who was the English rep for Humanoids at the time?
Crap.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. But we talked to him. Do you remember at London Super Comic Con? Yeah, we said, look, I'd rather have seen that image, because the image they used on the front of the trade was the one of the girl floating in front underwater looking at the face of the shark. And because of the perspective, it could have been a normal size shark. But this stops
There's
you.
No illusion,
none at all.
Fucking massive.
You realise that just the immense thing that the story's about, and you want to know more about it by looking at that single image.
But there's not the monster shark, because the book isn't necessarily about that. When you read it, there's a lot more going on. So it's not monster shark as the villain type thing. There's just how it's almost like how nature just completely dwarfs you.
And when you read into the book more, you realise there's more to that girl as well.
Yeah.
Do you remember she's the one who becomes the sort of underwater creature?
Yeah.
Towards the end of it. When are they going to put the new books out? Germany have got 6, 7, and 8 now. Why have we only got 1 to 5? Breaks my heart. Yeah. Oh no, I asked Judd Myers about it before he moved on to IDW. I said, come on, I've just bought a German version of this, book 6. Why can't we have it? Yeah. But it's an amazing series. The Adventures is a slightly different bag of fish. Pardon my pun, but it's because it's all different stories and it's done by different eyes. But this is very consistent, and it's beautiful. Get on it. A lot of our listeners have already read it, haven't they?
Yeah.
We talked about it. It was on my best of, a couple of our best ofs a few years ago.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I need to say no more. I absolutely.
You love sharks, don't you? Yeah.
I think it's great. The whole fact that like the the image can barely contain the shark. It just works so well.
Yeah. And there's a lot to look at. Even though it's a simple image, you look at the fin's breaking the water, which means it's so far underneath the water. You don't.
But to get the water effect like that,
amazing. Yeah,
special as well.
Top banana.
A lot of painting going on in there. It's a gorgeous image. And I love, as you said, Dan, like you could barely contain it. Like it's just like on the top right hand corner, like there's just a little bit of page between the nose, and then kind of where the eye might be on the other side.
Yeah,
it's
and
wonderful.
it's just the little details of like when you look at how much of the fin is sticking out of the water, it's not much at all because you can see the rest of the fin under
in the clear water. Yeah, it's beautiful, and that thing looks the megalon looks like it's made of fucking solid muscle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's no fucking about there, is there? Yeah.
Even if if you look at it, there's not much in the way of like lots of detail going on with it because a lot of it's you got the water on top and you got the shading, but you know because you know the shape and you know what it is.
Yeah.
You immediately it's like, geez.
Like there's all the movement in there with the kind of cutting through the water and. The kind of the water waves around the what she's sitting on, that little raft thing.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic. The sun on the water top left is a nice touch as well, I think.
Yeah,
it leads into the logo.
Piece of there's little details like the thing that she's on isn't just floating flat on the water. Some of it's it's like
submerged.
Yeah, submerged as well. Little details. It's beautiful and terrifying, and that's quite.
There's a great video. I don't know if you've seen it of a guy paddleboarding in the States as I think it's on YouTube. It popped up on Facebook. I think I saw it. And there's a killer whale. Sorry, comes underneath his. Have you seen this video?
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck me.
Fucking hell.
And this is that turned up to 303. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Because also, you got the broad details of the shark and the sea, but when you go in close on the gal, she's got the very detailed, life preserver and the first aid kit and all the bits and bobs in the box. Those kind of details from it being quite kind of figurative, and then to that where it's really precise, really just works. The contrast,
amazing.
And the humanoids logo isn't overpowering either. I think it could. If they'd have made it a bit bigger, it would have been for me. But it's okay. Yeah.
We've gone through this entire conversation, haven't said juxtaposition once.
Good on us. But from giant scary monsters to massive sexy beasts, Dan, what's your next pick?
Yeah, the Captain America annual. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's got Wolverine cap, just kind of going at it. The kind of the high energy, like Mike Zeck and someone else, which I'm just about to tell you now. John Beatty.
John Beatty, sorry.
Yeah, he's like slashing at Captain America's shield. He's sort of deflecting the blow. There's like energy and sparks and everything coming off of the impact. Just fantastic composition, lots of energy, just great. Yeah, it's one of those covers really like wow.
Also another one that's homaged often, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I had this as a poster as a kid, and I can remember trying to figure out how many ribs Wolverine had.
Yeah, it's got a few.
But like everything about this is sort of it turned up to 11. I mean, the hit of his claws against the shield. I don't know whether it's supposed to be like sound waves or it's heat.
I think they want to give out that he might have broken the shield, but they don't want to give out that he's broken the shield. That's my take on it. So it almost looks like a load of sands flying off it, didn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. I wonder if this has got to be an influence on the image creators. You know, the covers that came from them. There's got to be an image book, something like this. Yeah.
And
you've got like Wolverine's the black cow, like juxtaposition against the the white sort of orange, yellowy energy. It's great.
And now you mentioned that, Russell, the blue of Cap's costume makes so much sense on so many covers now that you've mentioned it. You know, it really does. Yeah. Great corner box as well. Look at him jumping just over the title and all that sort of thing.
Look at what I love about the corner boxes in this area is like how well drawn they are.
Yeah.
Such a lovely. Good. I mean, that's such good figure study. Oh.
I think that's a Burn. Is that Burn?
It looks like his legs, if that makes sense. Yeah. It looks like the type of legs he draws.
I think when you see two comic characters that fighting each other on a cover, we've seen that happens all the time. So much so that rarely do you see one and then think, I need to see this fight inside. This is a good example of like you see this moment and it's so kinetic and it's like I need to see these two have a fight.
This was a great period for Cap as well because you had the Paul Neary period, you had the Serpent Society, you had Deathlock, you had the other captain taking over. There were some really great little moments of this run. It's a really readable. Is it Mark Grunwald? I think I've got a feeling it's Mark Grunwald mostly who writes a lot of this stuff, and really readable and just not super special, not classic, just regularly really good books.
Yeah, I remember
that Deathlock cover's a classic as well, with him in the sights of Deathlock's gun.
Yeah, he's sort of like in the series aiming the gun at Cap. Cap's totally unaware that Deathlock's like drawing a bead on him.
Yeah, I remember drawing that cover as a kid, like trying to draw what he'd done there. It's a great cover. Yeah.
Who was on Deathlock at that time? Because I can recall like cover after cover just being absolutely wonderful in that series.
On Deathlock.
Yeah.
Deathlock wasn't was it Astonishing Tales? Deathlock, I can't remember now off the top
of my head.
I'm not
too sure.
It was. I'll have to look it up while we're talking.
Yeah. I just remember seeing those and thinking I hadn't read.
I bought some recently, actually. Yeah. It was the guy who created it, wasn't it? I'll come to me in a minute. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another series? There was multiple series of Deathlock. I can remember
Rich Buckler. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Rich Buckler's. He was a little bit Kirby back then. There was a little Kirby, trippy Kirby version.
Yes, yeah. I love those covers. I mean, I think that sort of influenced quite a bit of the way that I sort of then started looking for comics.
There's some really wacky ideas in those Deathlock comics. They really go all over the place. There was really, the old phrase of "I wonder what they were smoking at the Marvel offices" definitely goes for that series. Yeah.
Nice,
amazing,
right? Okay,
good stuff, man.
Great cover.
Just quickly,
okay.
My one is in the indie section of Comixology, is where I discovered it. A series that I loved at the time called "Who Needs the Moon."
He's lovely.
By Todd McCulloch, a creator who hasn't done so much recently, which is
okay.
But this was a great eight issue series about a guy going back to werewolves again. About a guy who heads into a town that has a vampire problem. And the book, if you look at the synopsis, it seems like the town has a vampire problem. This werewolf comes in to fix it. That isn't necessarily the case, and it's certainly probably one of the darkest books I've read, actually. And it really goes in some interesting directions. If you want to get it, it's all on Comixology. They're like 6.9p an issue for 8 issues.
Okay.
Wow, that's great.
But one of the things I loved about this series was not necessarily every cover, but there was certainly a good 4 or 5 covers in a row between like issue 2 to 6, and they're just the central character front and center on the cover, and it's almost a werewolf transformation, little bit by little bit, and it also but at the same time it's showing you the tone of the book is getting darker, and because
fucking some of them are quite disturbing.
Yeah, they are. Really well done.
Yeah. But all the way through, the eye of the character, there's lovely sort of painted. I think he works digitally, but there's a soft painterly look to it. But the eye of the character is quite a bold, almost vector-like sort of circle.
Yeah, there's a real glow to it, isn't there? Yeah, it's almost like he's got an actual light on the cover.
Yeah. But without using any effects to make it look glow, it's just a simple coloured ring to show like the iris of the eye.
It's quite hypnotic looking at the eyes.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So you're seeing the character sort of morph and change, and issue 6 you get a proper American Werewolf in London style picture of the final werewolf, and it's quite fitting because I think that issue is nothing but brutal sort of bloodshed when the werewolf kicks off. But also, I quite like that there's no fuss. It's very clear. I like the way where the numbers of the issues are. The font itself for the title just worked for me. It was it's readable, but it's still disturbing enough so you know where it is. And Todd's very humbly just put his name very very quietly at the bottom.
Yeah, there's no company logos, there's no price, there's no ISBN number, there's nothing on it, is there?
No.
It's just, I suppose we do that best in the small press, don't we? In the indie world, we otherwise, if this is a Marvel book or even an IDW, this would be covered in other stuff, wouldn't it? That would hold the image back on the page a bit, you know.
I mean, if you look,
well, they probably wouldn't. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for it, Russ.
I was just going to say, a publisher probably, unless you really, really made a good argument for it, wouldn't allow you just to be this quiet with your covers for an 8-issue series.
Yeah. But the covers themselves, definitely, they tell a story and give the atmosphere. I mean, if you look on the Comixology page for the series, you can see all of the covers of the issue. You can see that issue 1 doesn't necessarily have this sort of motif. It's something that Todd sort of discovered, and it really sort of hits a stride between issues like 2 and 8. Issue 8 is quite a haunting version of the cover because there's no glow of eyes. There's it's almost ghostly in a way. And issue 7, there's just the moon.
Okay.
So, but it's telling a story without actually telling a story. I mean, I love the artwork and the style of the art. Issue 5, where you can see like a human being, but it's all in shadow, and he's got a mouth full of like real carnivorous teeth. I fucking love that cover.
I think I went out with her in the
80s. Yeah, but it's I just love this. These make nice postcards. These make nice nice set of posters and stuff. And it just so happened that I loved the book that.
That's good. A cover can be good without you enjoying the interior, and that's quite common, isn't it? There's a lot of companies that sell their books just on their covers. Let's face it.
And certainly our new comic book day thing that we do every week, I can tell you for a fact that pretty much most of the time I haven't bought any of those 4 covered books. Probably.
Yeah. Can I give 2 worthy mentions?
Yeah,
just very quickly. Firstly, what cover conversation would be complete without Mad Magazine? I think we need to mention Mad Magazine. Alfred E. Newman, appearing on all those covers and all those funny, there was some great stuff. And I think the other one I wanted to mention was last week's guest, Brendan, who did some amazing covers. Brendan McCarthy, for some of his Shade the Changing Man stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
And just quickly, Mark Brooks' Secret Empire covers were amazing, and Creepy and Eerie were great as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, we knew we were going to have fun with this, and this is a sort of conversation that, were we in a pub or a cafe, we'd
still be going.
We'd still be going. And we probably certainly will soon enough. But we hope you enjoyed that. Obviously, keep the conversation going. We're going to have like a thread on Facebook and stuff, and let us know some pics of yours. We picked 3. Why don't you pick 3 all time?
We didn't mention any 2000 AD. There's loads of toothers out there.
Yeah. And there were certainly pics that we went back and forth.
Break down what works and what doesn't, and apply it to your own comics and your own creations. It's kind of different the battle we face when we make a cover to the big boys. I mean, most of us aren't presenting our work in shops. So you got a different battle to fight, but a good cover, you can't really go wrong.
And I like that this conversation wasn't just, here's the classics. Do you know what I mean?
I tried to stay away from that. We could have all picked like a Thor cover or the Fantastic Man, This Monster. I mean, there's all those sort of like you say about the Crisis cover, but we didn't. I wanted something just a bit personal to me, which is why I did the Avengers. And
great stuff. And Russ was a legend. As always.
Thanks,
Russ. As always.
He's sticking with us.
Yeah.
He's certainly going to be with us.
Still here.
And he's certainly going to be with us in some form very soon. And that is at the True Believers Comic Festival.
Yes. Can't wait.
Saturday, 1st of February 2020, 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Jury's End in Cheltenham. There's a fantastic list of guests going there. Just the exhibitors, the indie comics that I'm going to spend so much money. It's one of the only shows I'm doing this year, so I'm going to try and get out and pick up some books. But there's some talk, there's chat about panels, isn't there, Daniel?
There is.
Yeah, there was today. I was watching you 2 celebrities,
But, yeah. So stay tuned because we'll probably have some more info about like what panels are going to be there on the day just before, because it is fast approaching.
Yeah.
Likewise, if there's any indie creators you know who are going to the show, just follow their Twitter, and a lot of them, and this includes me and Dan on. I don't know if Russ is doing it, but some of them do pre-show commissions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So get in touch with us, them, whoever, and get a one-off piece of artwork.
And to echo someone who was talking about it today, Jason Wood, if you're offering pre-show commissions, guys, do them before the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got to reminded that had to be said.
Yeah, I think I agree with him, mate. Totally. He's a smart cookie, Jason. Yeah. More from him possibly soon. Yeah. I've got a couple of shout-outs that are related to Troobs, actually. So Stop Procrastinating, which is the new book about the trials and tribulations of a comic artist from our pal Kev Brett from Nottingham Comics. Go to kev-brett.co.uk and you'll find links to his books, or at kev_Brett on Twitter. Our friend, Nicky Boy Prolix, he's got a new sketchbook out and a really lovely looking BD homage to a Thelonious Monk album from 1968 called Underground, which undoubtedly you guys have all seen. You can pre-order it now. Go to www.nickprolix.com and at nickprolix with an X on the end on Twitter. Really good stuff. And the last one I've got is not Troobs related, but relates to our pal Rick Jackson, whose Kickstarter Heads, Spiral of Lies. It hits Kickstarter on the 21st. Go and have a look. It's a proper mad, trippy, detective, strange book, but it's well worth a read. Really good stuff. There you go. They're my 3 shout-outs.
Nice. Anyone else have any shout-outs?
I just wanted to give a quick shout-out to Rob Carey. He done a fantastic picture for me this week. You want to follow Rob on Twitter because every month he's doing a cover giveaway. He will draw your cover for your comic totally for free. All you got to do is retweet and like the tweet in question, and he'll pick it out at random and do you a cover, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah, how good is that?
By doing it, yeah,
previous guest,
fantastic.
Friend of the show, aren't they all?
Yeah.
And worked recently. If you don't know his work, he worked on Aliens. What was it?
Is it Colonial Marines?
Was it Resistance?
Alien
Resistance.
Resistance. That's it. Yeah.
The dude needs to do a RoboCop comic. For God's sake, someone give him a fucking RoboCop
absolutely.
comic.
That Cruel Sunset one he gave away for free was absolutely bananas. That was fantastic. Yeah. And he's done me 2 images. One which went online, another one which he sent me in private. So that's not going to be released till. That's not going to be
one for the boudoir.
That's not going to be released till later in the year when it's ready and when it's time. So
more news on that very soon.
Later.
When Butcher unleashes.
Yeah. And speaking of unleashing, we've had so much fun. We have to go through these quick. But our recommendations. Obviously, you've got to go forth and read some comics.
Yeah.
So
I can go first, quick.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got this one of Tony Nobrow, The New Ghost by Robert Hunter.
Oh, okay.
I read it. I read it again today. It's fantastic. It's there's a real chilling and unsettling element to it, of where like a ghost sort of phantom goes on their first day to work, and all the other ghosts are kind of floating through the world, and he has an interaction with someone by chance, and he ends up inadvertently doing his job, which I don't want to get too into the spoilers, which results in the death of someone, and he's sort of like, oh, if I fuck this up, but all the rest of them sort of say, pat him on the back, and that's what he's supposed to do. And all the way through, it's really unsettling because these ghosts, although they come across as quite sort of benign, that there's a real sort of menace and threat to them. And it's a really, really lovely story that sort of plays out. And I can't recommend getting it enough. I read it when Tony first gave it to me, and then I read it again today before the review. I read it a couple of times actually.
It's it's not a long read either. It's a nice sort of gentle. It's good. I really like that little series.
It definitely bears up to more rereads.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
Like master storytelling there.
Cool.
From Robert Hunter.
Nice. Who wants to go next?
Go on, V. You go. Go on.
Okay, my one's returning to a series that I talked about probably a few months ago that I got on Comixology from Action Lab. entertainment or comics or whatever. It's the Danger Zone of Action Lab, which means slightly more grown up of their titles, because I know they do all age books as well.
Yeah.
But they're doing great stuff, and they've been doing comics for like 5+ years now. And that's a fair shout for an indie studio. But this series is going to the chapel, of which there are 4 issues. The story is completely done. You can go on Comixology, get it for $1.49 an issue, I think, so you can read the whole set. And it's basically a group of robbers hijacking a wedding to steal some jewels, and it is both hilarious. It is really, it's like a movie that will know that. It's very cinematic in its sort of setup, but it's brilliantly comic book in its delivery, which I love about it. The dialogue and just the characters are brilliant, because I've forgotten the name of the gang now, but the actual sort of robbers that are taking over this church, which is in the middle of nowhere. Basically, this girl Emily, she's getting married, and she comes from a rich family, and she's going to be wearing this necklace on the day, which is priceless. And on the day, a group of robbers turn up, and they're all dressed like Elvis. I think they're called the Dead Elvises.
Okay.
So it's almost like it's a play on the Dead President sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's got that real great sense of humour going through it. It's written by David Paposi, art by Gavin Guidry, colours by Elizabeth Kramer, lettering by Ariana Maher. All the series also had lots of different covers, which were great. I think the original artist did a cover, but a lot they put, like, I think they had special cover artists come in to do ones that are on the title, and then when you see like where it says Chapter 1, Chapter 4, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What seems to be an original cover by the original artist. The story goes in ways that I didn't expect, which is brilliant, because you kind of. There's a twist at the end of issue 1, and I thought, oh, I see, it's going to be that sort of story. But yet there's more twists going on. There's laugh out loud dialogue and moments, and you'll really follow the characters. I love this. I think Action Lab don't do printed. Do they do printed versions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Do they do print comics? I thought they.
No, I think they do. I've seen one or two.
Yeah.
Maybe not everything these days. Yeah, maybe they.
Yeah. And I don't know whether this would come out in a print collection. It'd be a lovely book, but as it is, you can actually just read all the issues now. And if you just want a rollicking good time, sometimes you just want to watch a cool action comedy, don't you?
Yeah.
So don't worry about that action comedy that you'll probably find on one of your streaming services, because it'll be shit. Well, normally they are, aren't they? You want to think, I want to watch a comedy. Let's try this. Oh, that was bollocks, and I've wasted like 2 hours of my life.
Yeah, comedy's a hard win for me sometimes.
Yeah, and no comedy should be 2 hours. It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Apart from our show, obviously.
Well, yeah, it's comedy, tragedy, disaster, all in one.
Sex.
Yeah. It's got everything. But this series, Going to the Chapel, highly recommend it.
I always like it when I make Dan laugh when he's chuckling.
When he does that dirty laugh. Yeah. So and also it's got a play on words, because the 4th issue said time to bride or die. So
okay.
Oh yeah.
I love the wordplay. You know me, I'm a sucker for it. And there hasn't been as many puns in this episode as I thought there was going to be. I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, I thought we were going to be unavoidable.
Fun heavy.
Managed to, I've got one.
Go on, RMO.
So I've been reading. Been stuck in kind of like a French kick. Been reading one in particular. There's a series of these, and I haven't been able to find them in English except for the first one, by Christophe Blain. It's called Gus, and it's a western. I don't know if you've seen them. Tony,
I have, yeah. I've not read any, but I've seen the covers.
I love his style. It's so sort of whimsical and fast. It looks really simple, but I imagine there's a lot of effort that goes into it. But it's just a very funny sort of homage to Western films. There's bits that feel like almost like Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, but the characters are so well drawn. It's really beautiful, really, really lovely little series, and I would love to find the rest of them, because you can see them in like the Amazon, French Amazon, where they've got like eight of them. But I've only been able to find the one.
Is this like pre-Lucky Luke, or is it?
No, it's. I think. I mean, the publishing date on the one I've got was 2008.
Oh right, okay.
So it's 10 years, 20 years old. 20 years, not 20 years. Sorry, just a little over 10 years.
It's not on like Isneo or anything like that, is it? Is it on any of the digital sites?
Not that I've seen, but I will keep my eyes peeled though.
Yeah, I'll have a look. Yeah,
they're really, really good.
He's also got an enormous nose, from what I can see.
He does, yeah.
Gus, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a fair sized one myself. I'm a little Christophe window.
All right, bragger.
Well,
no complaints.
When you've got a honker like mine, no sense in not showing it off.
There's a quote for the notes.
Yeah, that's the Paul quote. So
anyway,
where did you get your book from?
I got mine, I think, at the Works.
Okay.
Oh,
really? You always find him in there, don't you?
Yeah, it was like £2, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And then I opened it up. It's like, "Oh, that's really pretty." Was sucked in, and then I've just been like sort of scouring the internet trying to find more about this guy. And there's one that he illustrated called Weapons of Mass Diplomacy. It's not his writing, which looks really interesting. It was written by, I think, a French diplomat. Looks very funny. Again, sort of same style of art. But there's quite a few that looks like he's done. He seems like a very well-known French cartoonist. But I hadn't come across him until that little copy of Gus.
Oh, nice.
So I'm looking forward to more. I'm going to share him with Senor Prolix, because if he doesn't know him, I'm sure he'll like him.
Yeah.
I'll keep my eye out. Angoulême.
Oh, man, yeah, if you do, please. I will give you monies. I will give you.
Oh, you don't have to give me money. You gave me a lovely badger commission recently.
I mean, they still trade in baguettes over there, don't they?
Yeah. I've taken up smoking just for fit in. Yeah.
Oh, just drinking your coffee straight from the bag.
Yeah. So I go.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So my one is Medina, Volume 1, The Drax, written by Tristan Rouleau, art by Dennis Rodier, 57 pages, digital only. It's a Europe Comics book, unsurprisingly for me. It's currently on sale on Comixology for £1.99, originally published by Dargard. It's a really fucking strange, fucked up science fiction story with a cover that looks straight out of something out of heavy metal, which we also didn't mention but should have done. Mm-hmm. There's a quote in the there's a couple of forwards to it. Strangely, I don't know why I found that unusual, but there's two separate forwards. And I picked this up after we talked to Brendan last week about Mad Max, and I actually went and watched Fury Road. I was dog sitting a mad dog late at night who was buying everything, and I thought, well, I'll put Fury Road on the watch. And I got a taste for the sort of post-apocalyptic, and I thought, I need to find something that's a bit like that. So I chose Medina. This
Dan,
book.
have you read this? I swear you've read this, Dan.
Really?
Looking
I know
at the
Tony's
cover,
read more comics than me.
But Tony, tell us what it's about.
So I'll go into it a little bit. I just from the forward, there was a quote that I really like the line, "The apocalypse can be incited." I don't know. I just really like that little quote. It sounds really good. Yeah. It's a mishmash of various different things. So it opens in a similar way to Mad Max, where you've got the truck, the sort of caravan of trucks traveling through the desert, and they're being chased by creatures that are a cross between something from Starship Troopers and the aliens from the Alien movies. They've got the alien teeth, but the rest, the sort of the legs are like the main sort of protagonists in Starship Troopers. It gets extremely gory. It's really, really strong visually.
I have just looked at the cover and I was like, yeah, this is fucking gold.
Oh, have you read? When did you read this, dude? A while ago.
A while ago. I think Europe sent it over.
Ah, okay.
But carry on.
Yeah, okay. So the human fighters will often get ripped apart. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of blood in it. And there's a sort of desert city surrounded by an energy dome. So You can see what I'm saying about there being different sort of sci-fi tropes, or just downright things that you've seen in science fiction films. So there's different alien creatures that appear in the same way you get in Starship Troopers. There's different sort of almost species. There's huge sort of ape-headed bird bat creatures with those huge. There's something about teeth when they haven't got lips on them that make them much more frightening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they've got sort of dead-eyed chimpanzee faces. And there's just this strange, raw weirdness to the book. It's the art's a little bit sketchy. It's almost like on certain pages they've left the pencil lines on. There's a sort of a movement to the images. There's a slight double image occasionally, an unfinished DIY look on an occasion. It's kind of, I don't find it unpleasant. I actually quite like it, but it's a strange thing to adopt. It almost looks like some of the layouts are just coloured in a weird way. There's a couple of sort of cityscapes that are the edge is a little bit unfinished, which is a strange thing to do. But it's kind of a cross between something you'd find in heavy metal and an anime or a manga image. It's occasionally go on, mate. Sorry, you're going to say
like the colours. Like a lot of it is quite flat. There's not like it's not overly rendered when you consider the artwork is quite. It seems quite sketchy and rough and kind of worked on quite heavily.
There's a lot of two colours or two tones of one colour used in panels, which is an interesting approach, which almost adds to the sort of bleak detachedness of the characters. The sort of the life is cheap, dead eyes, will survive. Oh, he's died. There's that sort of thing going on. There's life is cheap. It goes for the characters sort of hopeless. There's a hopeless element. They know they're going to die. They know that these aliens will beat them eventually. And there's this mystery. There's they use a sort of messiah imagery thing going on. There's a female who's born. We don't know whether there's a female there who's been impregnated, they believe, by one of the Drax. What will she give birth to? Will it be somebody who will save humanity, or will it be someone who will destroy humanity? And you get a little clue as what's going on in that as you go along. The desert setting that I described has got this sort of city, but it's also there's a huge worm-like creature that rises out of the sand. So you've got that sort of Dune element. You've got the caravan of trucks, which is a bit like Mad Max. You've got the monsters out of Alien and Starship Troopers. You've got the Messiah character, which is there's a little bit of the Matrix about it in a way. And you've got the alien-human hybrid child, which is a bit out of species. Do you remember that movie? Species. It's a little bit of that. So it's a little bit of a mishmash of sort of things, but it kind of works. There's kind of a real individuality, even though you've got those tropes all mixed in together. I think the sort of strangeness of the art, which is still readable. It's a readable art style. There's a strange pseudo-religious abuse of the child theme in the background. There's a strange messiah, but this girl has clearly been abused by an alien kind of thing, which is kind of just weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
I found it an interesting read. I found it. I read it in one sitting. I found it disturbing at moments. There's some real like fuck me. Did they just do that kind of moments in it? Whether you're just presented with something like this horrific alien ripping someone apart. I'm always looking for, now that I'm trying to draw stuff, I'm always looking for people, distinctive faces, charactered faces that I can have a go at drawing. And there was a couple of people in this actually. I thought, I'll have a go at that, and I sort of took a screenshot of a particular image and went on with it. It doesn't leave it on a particularly promising note. I think there's 3 currently on Comixology.
Okay.
If you liked Starship Troopers and you liked that sort of post Mad Max apocalyptic in the desert, shitty Italian sci-fi movie thing, which I'm just in love with, you'll probably enjoy this. But it skips a bit about between BD and between BD and anime and manga, and it's very distinctive. I can see this guy. The guy the writer hasn't really done much. He did Hedge Fund, which is an ongoing, and he did Irons, which I think I reviewed on the blog. But the artist Dennis Rodier, he's worked all over the place. So he's worked from Marvel and DC. He did action comics, Batman, Captain America. He did the Challenge of the Unknown, New 52. He's done the Legion Legion.
Yeah,
he's done that. His style on the DC and Marvel books is a little bit more tighter, I would say.
Okay.
But this is it's worth a look. Yeah. Did you enjoy it, Dan? Do you think it was all
Yeah,
right?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. I said it, I can remember at the time. It's got a bit of a Warhammer 40k flavour about it.
It does.
Especially with the aliens.
Yeah,
like if you kind of like dudes with guns going up against aliens, it's kind of your cup of tea. It's very kind of bleak though. It's not like it's got that Starship Trooper edge of like people getting picked off by this kind of like force of nature's like the aliens they're going up against. So it was an interesting one.
Nice.
Yeah. And it took me out of my comfort zone. Yeah, maybe feel a bit strange.
Now, so
£1.99. That's not bad, is it?
To get hold of it.
From my friends at Euro Comics.
Yeah. Who you may be hearing a lot more from very soon.
Yeah, good.
But there you go. Tons of comics, tons of show notes.
Well, yeah.
My work is cut out for me this week. So, but thank you for listening this week, and to our lovely guest for joining us.
Oh,
thanks, Russell. Always good, mate. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
We can see you in a few weeks' time.
I'll miss you.
Couple of weeks.
Don't say that.
We'll send you selfies, Tony. Don't worry.
Okay, fine.
From the hotel room.
Will you be on the Friday night, Russell?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
That's the party central bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Party time.
We're all gonna share a spaghetti bolognese like Lady and the Tramp.
In bed by 9:30.
Yeah, in bed by 9:30. Yeah, probably watching a Steven Seagal film.
In a three-way.
Oh, Tony, really? No. Were you disgusted by that? Then get in touch with us. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Likewise, if you blatantly disagree with any of our comments this week, we'll just put that. We'll delete that email. But you can email us if you want. Follow us on Twitter @TheAwesomePod, where we'll be announcing the next guests, etc. And we'll be retweeting our cover picks and probably a lot of yours on New Comic Book Day. Let's get a movement started for these covers. So, we'll figure out a hashtag of some kind, so then everyone can join in and check out the cover.
It's like you can tell a lot about someone by the books he reads when you go to his house, can't you? You can tell a lot by people's reading and comic book choices by the covers they choose. I think
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting to see what you people are picking out each week. You don't have to buy the books either, by the way. You're just literally looking at an image of the cover and going, "Yeah, that's my favourite cover this week."
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. If you want to buy it, but you don't have to.
You don't have to. Yeah. And follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast. And if you want to keep the conversation going, or any conversation about making comics, comic conventions or whatever, but you don't want any of this hard sell nonsense, then join the Facebook group Awesome Comics Talk. Fantastic community of people on there that we love dearly, and we just go on to read it. We hardly ever interact, really. We just go on and read. It's quality. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on iTunes, like, subscribe, leave a review. Helps get the word out about the show and all of these comics that we're talking about week on week. And if you listen to us on any networks like Spotify, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on Pod. I've got a PhD in boobs.
He has, I've seen.
I don't know where you get these from, Tony. Brilliant.
Basically, in the 15 minutes,
I've sent you guys the picture.
Yeah, in the 15 minutes before we actually click go on the recording, he's made a note of all the things that have made himself laugh. That's what it is. I know how he works.
It's all that counts.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, I'm the only person that laughs at my jokes, but at least I know I've got an audience. Anyway, thank you for listening to us. Where can people find us on social media, etc.? Tony?
SASEZOHYZ, or you can find me flouncing about like the cool fucker I am in Ongalem soon.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Dan Butcher?
You can find me on Twitter @Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Nice. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram @JesterDiablo, and our lovely guest Russell Mark Olson.
I'm mostly active on Twitter, so you'll find me at Russell _M _Olson. That's OLSON.
Look at that.
Nice.
So legit. Too legit to quit.
Hey, hey!
Oh, well, we might as well sign off there. It doesn't get better than that.
Listen, I'm on my own in the hotel room. That's going to help me sleep, that is.
Oh, my word.
Don't tell me that. I've got hives.
Get ready for FaceTime.
Oh, there's spiders all over me.
I tell you what, that Tony saying get ready for FaceTime. The amount of people that's probably heard that. Is that what you say before you go in for a kiss, Tony?
Get ready for FaceTime. Well, I FaceTime you guys, everything, don't I? Everything I do.
He doesn't mean a phone, does he?
No. Basically, his face is going somewhere.
Jackson Pollock time.
Oh, Tony, really?
What?
Come on. Sort yourself out. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Don't
Have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. Have an extra look at that comic book cover you liked this week. And,
yes.
You know, inspect it and then tell us afterwards if you still like it after 5 minutes staring at it. Because we just stared at these comics a lot longer than we really should have probably.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that come to you when you look at them.
Yeah. What do you mean by that, Tony? Anyway, read loads of comics from Dan, Tony, Russell and myself. Have a brilliant week. And as always, what do they do?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome. That's good. That's good enough.
That's right.
Yeah, but yeah. I think
don't make that noise.
The sign off is just going to become me going, that'll do. Bye, everyone.
I hear that a lot. Bye.
See ya.
In unison. That'll do.